I don't think Vaush is like an idiot. One of the reasons why I hold him to a higher standard is I think he's like fairly intelligent. He just does shit for optics sometimes or whatever. But this man, this brave warrior, decided that he was gonna go headstrong, blinders on, into a debate about a sex gender distinction with a philosophy PhD who's authored a paper on this topic with absolutely no preparation. And he was gonna rely on the surface level philosophy that he picked up from me in 2018 to do it. Can I just get some claps in chat for the absolute bravery of this mad lad?
I'm sorry?
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah, all you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's aqua.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to watch this. This is gonna be the highlight of my life, is gonna be this debate. Okay, oh my god. I hadn't seen this video. Damn. Now I feel a little bit bad because I kind of defended Vaush during the J.K. Rowling arc. It's like, oh, I didn't think he said anything that bad. He just needs to be a little bit more chill. Bro, what was going on here? Oh no.
So I'm sorry if my points have seemed childish so far, but a good chunk of Vaush's arguments being a generous word, involve picking apart my accent, my appearance, my outfit, and my persona. You know, all the things 12-year-old girls go for when they're feeling particularly bitchy. So it's difficult to be serious when I'm not given anything serious to work with. And then, because apparently he really wanted to prove my point about male feminists, he said this.
She's a pick-me. No wonder she's dressed like this. She's wearing a fucking skirt with stockings. She just wants to live in mad...
What does that mean, bro? That's such a standard girl outfit. Is a skirt with stockings doesn't mean that it's like, what? Dude, this whole video is wild.
No wonder she's dressed like this. She's wearing a fucking skirt with stockings. She just wants to live in Mad Men and be sexually harassed by, like, the fucking... the office boys.
I'm sorry? I beg your pardon, sir. What was that? What do I want?
She just wants to live in Mad Men and be sexually harassed.
Yes, but...
What is happening, dude? I missed, I don't know why you would. Maybe he was doing the Ultra Instinct, Ultra Irony arc, trying to like I was. Jesus. Ninu. This is the guy that said he could get pussy at any time, and Tinder wept because he left the dating scene.
Wait, is this guy seriously saying that I can't get laid? Incredible, I'll give you 5,000 if you can get poontang before January 1st. Do you have any idea who the fuck you're talking to? When I got off Tinder because of the fucking quarantine, Tacoma wept. Even like ignoring the fact that I have a girlfriend, even if we're just talking like randos, I'm 2 hours away right now from being inside somebody else. This is one, I have two skills, and it's non-monogamy and speaking publicly, okay? Do some fucking research.
Sorry. Well, we won't watch this whole video. Is that shit you tweeted about Vaush on the periodic table real? Oh, bro! Cynical Brit! Oh, we haven't gotten to that yet. Oh, shit. I don't want to spoil. That's like 3 hours into the stream. Damn, dude. Okay, stop. I'm getting distracted. Okay. Okay, so yesterday I said something to Booksmarts, something along the lines of like... I'm sorry. I think I said something along the lines of like, I don't think Vaush is like an idiot. One of the reasons why I hold him to a higher standard is I think he's like fairly intelligent. I would say he's like fairly intelligent. He just does shit for optics sometimes or whatever. But this man, this brave warrior, decided that he was going to go headstrong, blinders on, into a debate about a sex gender distinction with a philosophy PhD who's authored a paper on this topic with absolutely no preparation. And he was going to rely on the surface level philosophy that he picked up from me in 2018 to do it. I just want to, can I get some clappas Can I just get some claps in chat for the absolute bravery of this mad lad to think that he could try to take the philosophy that
Listen,
I knew.
bitch. I'm insecure about my skinny arms.
4 years ago, before I knew what fucking ontology meant, and go and argue with a philosophy PhD over sex, gender distinctions. Just claps for that, okay? Thank you, Ziggy90.
That was true even before we knew about chemistry. That was the definition of water before anybody knew anything about chemistry, before we knew about H2O. Back when Aristotle thought water was just an element. Nevertheless, it was H2O.
True.
I'm sorry?
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah, all you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's aqua.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to watch this. This is going to be the highlight of my life, is going to be this debate. There's like this, I used to do this, so 100%, I'll cringe at myself. This is why I hate everything. Somebody asked me a while ago, what do you think is the most cringiest video you've ever done? And I basically say every time you go back 2 or 3 years, all of my videos are cringy. Because I'm constantly like understanding new things and updating my understanding. People that have like this elementary grasp of philosophy and think that they can just reinvent everything on the fly. Like, bro, people have written books and books and books on shit like this, okay? Like, you're not fucking Wittgenstein Jr. at age 29 with no formal background whatsoever, and you're about to give us a whole new theory of language, okay? Like, what do you think are you gonna do?
Agua. It's not aqua, right?
And we're referring to terms and definitions here.
No, I'm referring to water, the stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
The
I'm
stuff
not
that
talking
fills
about the word one.
many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay. Do you honestly not know what I mean when I talk about water, or are you just being a little difficult?
I think you made a mistake before you began that argument, which is that you said just because...
Wittgenstein was like 23 when he wrote his first book. Yeah, but he was probably some spoiled rich kid that spent way too much time reading philosophy, like a fucking loser, okay? No one cares.
People didn't always know something doesn't mean that it can't be true. But that can't be the case when we're talking about definitions. Things that are...
Okay, we'll watch this from the beginning. Okay. Where do we even start? I don't even know where to start, okay? Let's start with ShoeOnHead. So, in case you guys didn't know, so in the Destiny community, we have the LS, okay? We've got the Lauren Southern question. In Vaush's community, they have the ShoeOnHead question. And both communities constantly vie to throw these two women at each other to see which streamer man is more of a simp or worse human being, basically. So one of the problems that Vaush's community has is that I'm trying to think if I need to build a bridge to Shoe right now, because she might be stranded in the ocean. No, actually, I hate Shoe. One of the problems that Shoe has is that Shoe is, and she's self-aware about this, so I don't feel bad saying this. Shoe is, I'm trying not to be too mean. She doesn't have the best mind for politics, okay? She kind of, she's kind of a loose cannon, okay? That's not supposed to be sexual. She just kind of says what she pops into her head at any particular point in time, and it's not always the most insightful thing. So, okay, there as we go, all right? How is that sexual? Well, I don't want somebody thinking I said like loose, like, oh, she's a slut or something. I don't know if you guys are weird, okay? Unread messages. I don't care. Okay. But the problem is that I think she recently was she recently gave a take where somebody tweeted out a I only check Vaush's subreddit in the morning when I wake up, so I don't keep 100% up to date on this. But I think somebody tweeted out like, "Oh, here's a disgusting drag person that's doing something for children or whatever," and it ended up not being the case. It ended up not being something that it was either a straight person or it was something different. And the problem is that Shoe, it was a burlesque dancer. That's it. It wasn't an LGBT thing. It was Shoe. It was a burlesque dancer. The problem is that when Shoe amplified this tweet, I think that her tweet, the original tweet got like 2,000 likes, and I think her tweet ended up getting like 20,000 likes. She amplified the fuck out of it. And then she ended up going on to make some huge apology where she's like, listen, guys, like politics is like kind of for fun for me. And I don't know anything about politics and don't judge me. And, oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks. I should have documented this more closely. Oh, here it is. The crazy part about the kids' drag show was that it was a nothing burger. The crazy part about the kids' drag show that was a nothing burger is that the loser that infiltrated it, maybe he means initiated it, got less than 2,000 likes, and Shue got 59,000 likes and made it viral. Oh, she actually got it. Do you think she got it on? I didn't click next. Did she actually get it onto Tucker Carlson? Oh, no. Oh, my God. Representative, I didn't even click next on these. Representative Slayton says he will file a bill to ban drag shows in the presence of minors in Texas. Damn, ShoeOnHead is more legislatively effective than Vaush with a single tweet. What a queen. Apparently Tucker did a segment on it. Jesus. That wasn't the burlesque photo? Was it not at all related? It looks like Shue tweeted the same thing. What are you talking about? Or it might be something different, but it's part of like the stuff that Shue is tweeting, I think is what people are trying to say. No, listen, now, because I don't listen to Vaush enough, I've never listened to Vaush defend Shue. So I don't actually know if he does. I don't know if he does defend her or what. But apparently, people feel like he's defending her. People feel like he's running defense. Oh, I also see, because I get brought up on here. Didn't Vaush imply Shue's boyfriend wasn't a Nazi on stream yesterday? Anyone who uses the term cultural Marxism is oftentimes an anti-Semite. The leaps and bounds he goes into defending this woman is insane to me. It reminds me a lot of Destiny with Lauren Southern. Do I get brought up a lot in here? And D doesn't even defend Lauren as much as Vaush defends Shue. Damn. Oh, no. Oh, the back and forth. But anyway. Fuck Vaush if he sees his threat and doubles down gaslighting us. He can fucking join Destiny and the pieces of shit not worth taking seriously at that point. Since Destiny fucking talks about being a trans ally, but fucking shits on the trans community on any day that ends in Y. Just like Vaush says he's part of a community but fucking defended Shue's Nazi boyfriend. You suck dick, Vaush? Well, so do I, but unlike you, I ain't giving a Nazi head just to sit for some mediocre negative IQ pussy. Jesus Christ. Fuck, what else was it? There was one guy that made a thread. I'm not gonna be able to find it. Oh, so they made this thread. Vaush addressed the Shue problem, and his response was that we are all insane, that we are the problem, and we are toxic because we think Shue's boyfriend is fascist, and we are all being feds. And then and this guy got permabanned, and he locked the thread at 140 comments. This is from yesterday, yeah. I wonder how many people got banned in here. This got me banned, and I'm not even a DGG. Damn, dude, that fortress. Do you remember what I said about Nazis, guys? This is what I said. Listen, if you want to be a race realist, fine. Okay, get rid of all the brown and black people. But once you've done that and there's only white people left, you're not going to see all white people. You're going to see people with brown hair. You're going to see people with fucking blonde hair, you know? And once you've gotten rid of all the brown-haired people, you're not going to see a whole bunch of white people with blonde hair. You're going to see people that have green eyes, people that have blue eyes, right? You're always going to divide on these differences. And that's what's happening in the Fortress. They got rid of all the outsiders, and now they're slowly whittling down what's left on the inside. Oh, no. I should have went link hunting before this. Vaush reacting on stream. Oh, shit. Hold on. I didn't see this one.
Namely downplaying the extent that Shue's BF is an anti-LGBTQ fascist. Literally.
The funny thing is, I read through ShoeOnHead's boyfriend. ShoeOnHead's boyfriend's tweets. Fuck. I thought I had this up. Oh, no. Wait, can somebody link me the thread with all of his tweets? And I don't want to run defense for ShoeOnHead or her boyfriend because I don't give a fuck about either of them. And none of them would give me any amount of charity. Oh, 557 comments. But the thing is, her boyfriend's Twitter just kind of reads like a guy that's listened to way too much Jordan Peterson. I don't know if he's actually like a fascist or Nazi, but here are the 6 tweets that this guy took out. I think one of these is a little sussy, but they've gotten a majority of the Western world to believe that men can become women. If they can convince us of that, everything else is fair game. I'm almost positive I've heard this from Jordan Peterson, like verbatim. Nobody, man or woman, should have freedom to do what they want with their bodies. This sounds like a Jordan Peterson take to me. These aren't riots about systemic racism or George Floyd. They're not about police brutality. All of that was the catalyst for the first wave of cultural Marxist uprising. You reading this tweet may roll your eyes at this now. Let's see if this cultural Marxism. Didn't Jordan Peterson talk about this shit a ton? I don't know if he has recently. It is intellectually and morally bankrupt to suggest that American political parties engaging in any kind of genocide against any group of people other than against the unborn, perpetuated by the Democratic Party. This is a pretty standard conservative talking point. They talk about how black conservatives especially will talk about like the genocide against black babies. I've talked to a black conservative. I don't remember his name, a couple times in my stream about that. Party of freedom, except when your freedom clashes with my religion. Liberty does not equal license, you moral infant. It's wanting to prevent evil, including abortion, also including contraception. So these are the evidence brought forth to prove that ShoeOnHead's boyfriend is a fascist, which is these tweets are cringe, to be clear. The guy is clearly like a JP fucking fanatic. But I guess actually if you asked Vaush's subreddit, they would probably they'd probably think that Jordan Peterson is a fascist as well, right? But it's just I like watching them eat themselves, because now this is something where Vaush truly only has himself to blame. Because like if you're gonna come on and call like Scalia and George Bush fascists, and you're gonna throw around fascists all the time, you can't really be that surprised when people are calling like ShoeOnHead's boyfriend a fascist, right? You can't really be that shocked about it. Vaush has definitely called Jordan Peterson a fascist. Oh well. Didn't Vaush imply Shu's boyfriend wasn't a Nazi on stream yesterday? Anyone uses the term cultural Marxism as oftentimes an oh, we already read this. This is leaps and bounds, blah, blah, blah. This is Nazi talk, and she's dating a Nazi. Vaush is wrong on this one and is gaslighting us if he tries to defend this behavior. It's just sad as to why he keeps defending her. These are also old tweets, so who knows? As many pointed out, the last tweet was from 2 weeks ago. Oh, apparently they're in the GC, guys. Apparently they all share a group chat together, and I guess Vaush must have referenced that once, because I saw a lot of comments on the stream, but it's like, Vaush said he's cool in the group chat. It's disgusting. Cultural Marxism stuff is at least fascist adjacent. I think it came from the old ideas of that cultural Bolshevism or whatever, which was Nazi propaganda, but like I think a lot of people have like contemporaneously adopted like the cultural Marxist postmodernist shit. Like I feel pretty confident that Jordan Peterson is not a fascist. I'm pretty sure he's like actually like a liberal with like some pretty whatever beliefs. I don't think Jordan Peterson is a fascist. I know that he's talked about that cultural Marxist shit a lot. Not to say that it's good. I think it's cringe when people bring it up, but I don't think Jordan Peterson is a fascist. Okay. Jordan Peterson doesn't use the term cultural Marxism. He uses postmodern neo-Marxist. I've heard him say that before, but I swear to God, I've heard him talk about cultural Marxism too. I feel like I almost positive. I don't know about recently, but I'm sorry, hold on. When I say liberal, my brain is on international right now. When I say Jordan Peterson is a liberal, what I mean is like he's not a fascist and he's not a socialist. I don't mean he's a liberal and that he's like left-leaning or like a Democrat or whatever. He's probably like whatever part of the political spectrum you put Joe Rogan on is probably where Jordan Peterson is. He talks about cultural Marxism in 12 Rules. Okay, gotcha. I don't mean liberal in the sense he's like Democratic or left-leaning. Why anyone continues to support Shu is beyond me. Simpology is a very dangerous ideology. Imagine finding this piece of shit attractive. Oh my God. Post it all, my friend. There's a lot I didn't even post. Please, our community deserves the truth on this. If Vaush really wants to make this community into the base pro-queer safe space fortress, then we've got to know when a snake is snuck through the gates. ShoeOnHead is a threat to our queer and trans comrades. That much is obvious now. She has not apologized. She has apologized since it was posted, but I ain't buying it. She still thinks she was right. Remember when I was like, there's no point in apologizing to these people? There really isn't. Don't let that Nazi scumfuck boyfriend off the hook. This fucker wants to torture queer and trans people with conversion therapy. Nuke his ass with all the screenshots, I beg you. Thanks for what you have done already, though. I'm so proud of how this community has responded to this painful, stressful situation. She didn't really apologize though, really. I didn't. I saw her big. She made like a 10 tweet thread about some shit that I read, but normally I'd be against using the opinions of someone's partner to criticize them, but I think it's just right here. Really? Would you really normally be against that? Really? If somebody told you they were dating a Nazi, you're telling me that you would normally be against using their opinions to crucify that person? Okay, chief. Hey, that's me. I really laid it on thick. Oh, KCJ from LA, it is you. Why are you in both of our communities? I super don't understand how people can watch both me and Vaush. I don't understand you guys. How can you watch us both? I feel like we're so different. Unless you're hate watching.
Now,
Oh, shit. 5 hours ago. Mr. Mood anti-fan. Oh, we got so many gems to go through. Okay, we got to finish watching the Bears clip. Sorry, hold on.
namely downplaying the extent that Shoe's BF is an anti-LGBTQ fascist.
Oh, this is the post. I saw this, I think, before I went to sleep. Or no, it was when was this posted? Fuck. Probably done with Vaush after the gaslighting about the shoe situation. Check out this guy. Check out this post, okay? Also, if this guy got banned, that's fair game. I ban people that do this all the time. So I don't even judge you, Vaush. I don't even judge you if you ban this guy, okay? Because these posts are cringe as fuck. But when it's happening to other people, it's base as fuck, so... Wait, hold on. Wait, what did this guy in chat say? Destiny, that was me, bro. I am the PsyOps DGG for life. Okay, wait, hold on. Wait, but you got 55 upvotes in his subreddit. Okay, hold on. You guys have to chill. You guys have to chill, or else people like Hassan are actually going to start seeing you in the walls, okay? Stop doing this. Is all of Vaush's subreddit just a bunch of alternate accounts from DGG? Are there any Vaush fans? I'm just kidding. Okay. 1.3 thousand people logged in right now. Damn. Okay. They are sleeper agents. True. They're just waiting. You guys are waiting like the guys at the end of V for Vendetta for my manifesto to come, okay? You will be rewarded, okay? It might be in the afterlife, but you will be rewarded. Okay, we're watching this.
Namely downplaying the extent that Shoe's BF is
Let me, I don't know if he's going to read this whole post, but...
an anti-LGBT.
Is he? I don't think he will.
Namely,
I don't know. Namely, downplaying the extent that Shoe's BF is an anti-LGBTQ fascist. He's giving Shoe so much leeway where he'd give other creators 0 before lashing out and ranting and raving over the slightest criticism of him. True. I've got to say, I'm starting to wonder if Vaush has been this toxic and manipulative all along. I've just been drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, there's got to be a legit reason everybody outside his community hates him. Oh no. I mean, really, think of any defense of Vaush. Anytime something gets linked with Vaush saying or writing some sussy shit, the response is always, yeah, he did do and say that, but here are a million caveats that make this okay. I mean, obviously, a lot of hate and criticism is ridiculous, but after some reflection, I think he's generally a very dishonest actor. I think he's very manipulative to his fan base, and he's been outright abusive to other creators before, and let's be honest, the Poppy thing was really fucked. We shouldn't have forgiven him so easily or at all. Anytime the community starts to turn on Vaush, Vaush just begins to purge his community of anybody who critiques him, and his remaining audience just moves on business as usual. Vaush can't take criticism and lashes out terribly anytime he receives, and I don't really feel safe in his community anymore. Oh no.
Downplaying the extent that Shoe's BF is an anti-LGBTQ fascist. Literally, I just said in a group chat, I thought...
In a group chat? He's the group chat! He's chilling the GC, guys! He's so cool in the group chat. Imagine that. Lauren Southern guy, she's cool in the group chat. Do you think Vaush will let me get away with that one?
Given Shoe, that's not what gaslighting means, by the way. He's given Shoe so much leeway where he'd give other creators 0 before lashing out and ranting raving slice criticism. Again, I started to wonder if Vaush has been this toxic and manipulative all along. Dude, teaching psychiatric terms to Zoomers was such a fucking mistake.
Wait, I thought I was about to get a repeat. Teaching psychiatric terms to Zoomers is such a mistake. We'll probably see it in the debate, but it's so funny. He's just one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my entire life. There's going to be another part there's going to be another part later on where he goes off on how, what did he say? It's like people learning elementary philosophy terms was the worst thing to ever happen on the internet to debate. And I was like, yeah, true, Vaush. We'll probably get to that one later. I think that comes in his... Is this clip quiet or am I crazy?
That unsound arguments, I mean, you said they wouldn't care about circular. I don't know why you're talking about circular arguments when I haven't provided a circular argument. I have no idea what this... I swear to God, teaching mediocre people online what philosophy terms are has been the greatest mistake humanity's ever made. I hope...
Absolutely true. And I hate myself for it. Absolutely true.
Holy shit. It has led to an exponential increase in the number of people making bad arguments using larger words.
He's got to be fucking with me. He's fucking with me right now. He's fucking with me. I know he's fucking with me. He must be. He's got, I rescind my rescension. Rescension? What do you call something that is rescinded? I'm rescinding the thing that I rescinded before. Vaush I said he was intelligent. And I was like, no, I think he's dumb as fuck. Now, actually, I think he's hyper intelligent. I think that Vaush turns the stream off and he's like, oh my God, Destiny's gonna be so fucking triggered that I just explained myself to a T. And I'm gonna be acting like I have no self-awareness about it at all. Like 2 days ago, when he was like, I think we should hold people accountable with betting. I think that'd be a really good idea. And I think, after he calls me a scumbag for trying to bet him on the genocide shit. I think he actually plans this out in advance. And I think he's like, oh my God, like he's probably the one that made this clip. He might be in my chat right now. And he's like, Destiny's gonna be so fucking triggered. And then I'm gonna get free airtime on his stream for the next 12 hours by saying just the dumbest shit, unimaginably like stupid shit.
It has led to an exponential increase in the number of people making bad arguments using larger words. I swear to God. Listen, go out to fucking Bristol, go to some goddamn Northern English province where everyone speaks in an incomprehensible accent and ask them about gender issues, and I swear to God, you're going to get as much coherence as your average fucking philosophy bro online.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, we keep taking a break from this clip.
I mean, there's got to be a legit reason everyone outside his community hates him. Is this a psyop?
It might be,
The
dude.
Poppy thing was really fucked and we shouldn't have forgiven him so easily or at all. Okay, this is a DGGer, 100%. The Poppy thing happened before I started my channel.
Oh no, the fortress has been infiltrated, guys.
Literally, it's just a psyop, yeah. It's Destiny himself. Yeah.
Is it? It might be.
Yeah, it's got to be. Pepe, I didn't actually read it. Based. Never read Reddit comments before banning the people who made them. Wait, hold on. There's a removed post from 9 days ago called "Y'all finally ready to admit you were wrong about the vaccines?" Now he's a conservative. He must be a Destiny fan. Sorry.
What is the implication there?
Stupid. Oh wait, he keeps posting anti-vax shit. Holy fuck. This guy's committed. So definitely DGGer. Oh, 100%. All DGGers are anti-vax. Very true.
True. I think he's being sarcastic there. Oh, this one got locked.
Keep hating your life then,
I didn't realize
working class
it.
Andy.
Oh, this one would have had more comments. This got locked at 557 comments. Okay, what is this?
If you're asking, do I believe we should believe things that are wrong if it makes us happy, then no. If that was the case, I wouldn't be talking about how Republicans... that would be a Destiny argument, where be quiet about the fact that Republicans are trying to destroy our democracy and, like, enable genocidal conditions because it makes people upsetty spaghetti to learn about that. But I'm a rigid adherent to reality, tragically. Unhappy as it makes people in my community.
The truth sayer.
Now, if you're asking, do I believe we should believe things that are wrong?
This has to be bait. Dude, I can't tell anymore. I truly don't know. My conditions have been ameliorated such that I am no longer capable of facilitating salient thought.
I find a lot of concern.
Okay, let me watch this real quick. A fan emailed me this and said he fought with Charlie Kirk for a minute.
It just makes like the potentiality argument, like, oh, it's gonna be alive, but I don't think we value potentiality because it seems like an inconsistent position. Because at what point do we consider like the life potentially beginning? Like, I feel like we can do it when the couple meets.
Well, yeah, the sperm and egg meet. Yeah, that's when DNA.
When the couple. Why wouldn't it be when the couple meets before that?
No, here's why. Because a new DNA isn't formed when you go on a date.
So we value DNA.
Yeah, DNA is pretty important. DNA is the building blocks of your entire life story. Whether or not you have brown hair or blue eyes, so that's a special thing. You'll even agree, right? You go into a library like, whoa, that's a pretty amazing genome. At that moment, your whole how you look after.
If Charlie Kirk wants to make this argument, you can make that argument, but you can't make an argument for, I don't think you can make an argument for potential life if you're talking about the creation of a zygote, because you're talking about that particular life now. You're talking about a thing, not a potential thing, right? So you have to defend the existence of that thing, not a potential thing. No?
Puberty, how you'll age, all that stuff, it's built right there in that DNA. My opinion is because that whole roadmap, your story, your book, is right there, like, don't terminate it.
I think you could fight on that more, but... okay. Oh, shit. So the whole reason why I even started digging into the Vaush subreddit more. So yesterday, Vaush decided to debate a PhD guy on the gender-sex distinction. And this is a guy who's written a paper, apparently, on this, and he was confident enough to do this debate with no prep. Good luck, guys. Here we go. Watch the opening statements from Vaush's point of view at least. He copes so hard. Okay, link me Vaush's point of view if you want. There you go. All right, here we go. Good luck.
Let's see. It's still white for me.
Okay, we'll watch Vaush's point of view since you guys want to watch the cope, I guess.
Oh, there. Oh, okay, now I think it's 2 seconds. Let me just adjust the size. And then... Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it. And then... Let me just... Good. And then if we could, just because last time a speaker was doing share screen and their slides would advance on...
Just notice shirt is cute. Wearing is so
their
cute.
Their slides would
advance...
Yeah,
Ninu, when are we having our merch out? This is a cute shirt. It is a cute shirt. I know you guys want it. Look at how fucking nice it is. Look at this. Look at that. It's cute. Look at him. Look at him. You want it. I know you want it. It's an awesome shirt, okay?
On their side, but they were not advancing for the audience. Can you just click to the next slide just so I can be sure that they'll see it? Okay, good. So
I don't have any slides.
Why is this a person? So yep, it's working, and then
I don't have any slides, guys.
Cool. Good there. So
yikes, bro. Not a good look.
Great. And then I'm gonna pop
he's a PhD. I kind of expect that. Already lost.
And then
it's already over.
OBS. And then yeah, and yeah, once you plan on pulling it up, if you let me know, if you say, all right, I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll pull it up so that way the audience can see it.
Okay.
And then, otherwise, any last questions, guys?
That's it. I think I'm ready.
I think I'm all set.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. This is fun. Thanks for being here, guys. And I'm going to jump on screen for that cold open, where, like I said, I'll kick it over to you, Vaush. So here I go in 3, 2, 1.
Boom.
Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not trans women are women, and we're starting right now with Vaush's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Vaush. The floor is all yours.
Hello, I'm Vaush. Okay, so there are two basic arguments here. First of all, the idea of sex and gender being distinct categories. They obviously are. I don't think anybody disbelieves this. There are obviously things that we refer to, which are in the purview of the experience of being a man and a woman, which are not defined biologically. Whether it be light blue and pink being distinguished gendered colors, the clothing that we wear, the way we style our hair, these are things which are not derivative of our biology. They are derivative of social standards which change. You can look at other parts of the world in which they're different. You can look at different points in time within our own country, and they are different. There's no getting around that. It's not like biology is changing rapidly year to year as the fashions do. If people don't like, the idea of gender and sex being separate, then we can simply say that when I refer to gender, I'm referring to some other separate category that is not sex, but describes social differences that tend to be associated with sexual ones.
Damn, I would have written out a statement for this, but whew, Vaush is a braver man than I. Good luck.
And once you have that nailed down, the following argument is one of utility. We construct definitions. We do
no, he's already kind of sort of stumbled into both arguments that are addressed on the paper. So he's kind of, when he's talking about like colored things, I don't know if he's gonna make like, well, I guess he's making an argument for like the changing nature of gendered stuff culturally, which I think is addressed a couple times throughout the paper. And now in this argument here,
the following argument is one of utility.
The argument of utility, I think, is addressed pretty well in his first response in his paper, where he essentially says, well, for an argument of utility, we're not getting to the truth of the matter of if there's a sex-gender distinction. Now you're just telling me that it's an inconvenient truth and we want to lie about it to make people feel better. Oh, no. All right, good luck.
We construct definitions. We do it to serve our own purposes as humans. The only reason definitions exist is because they serve us. We are their masters. And if I believe, as is the case, by the way, of many medical and psychiatric institutions, if we believe that the definition of woman being one tied entirely to sexual differentiation is arbitrary, inconsistent, and harmful, and that there is a more utility-serving definition.
What is your position? My position is that I feel like so here is my issue. Okay, so here's how I think scientific categories change. I guess we can do my position before they start this debate. So it feels like you create like this scientific category because it provides a lot of explanation for a lot of things. But every now and then, what'll happen is it'll seem like we'll discover a couple facts that don't seem to be accounted for in our original model. So we have to find a way to either expand our model or radically change our model in order to account for these new things. So it would seem to me that if trans people didn't exist, I would probably say that sex and gender, or like gender is almost like an abstraction of sex in some ways. Gender is, I would say Butler is like, it's a performative thing where gender is just like a performance we have in society. Sex is like the biological fact of the matter or whatever. However, I think trans people represent a problem because it seems like there are people that have a strong innate feeling that their something is not matching their sex. So insofar as that is concerned, I don't know how to account for that other than to recognize that there must be some separate internal feeling of what your gender is that is separated from the biological reality of what your sex is. That seems to be the case. And then I would challenge, I would need some way to account for how trans people feel and the phenomenon that they seem to experience that I need a way to account for that. And the only way I can account for that is that it's like, I don't even know if I'd call this a sex gender distinction. I might say that there's some internal feeling of sex, and then you've got like the biological features or phenotypes of a person that seems to resemble what their sex is. That would be like something that I would need somebody to account for. Explain to me how people can have an incongruent internal experience of sex or gender that is incongruent with their like sexual expression. That would be what I would want. I don't think that was any of the arguments given in any of those feminist or philosopher papers, though. So I don't know how much this is believed on by anybody. I'm not sure.
One to use, say by self-identification, then that is the one that I will use. I have no interest whatsoever in abiding by some harmful arbitrary standard out of a need to stick to tradition when there's a perfectly serviceable and better one that makes people more happy and hurts nobody lying right there. And that is why I say prescriptively that trans women are women, and descriptively, they have been treated as women historically in our society in varying extents throughout history, depending on the culture and time period. It's a complicated business, but we can get there.
Oof.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Vaush. And if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, want to let you know, folks, we're a neutral platform hosting debates, panels, and discussions on virtually every topic. Want to let you know, we hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. And I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Bogardus for his opening as well. Want to remind you, the speaker's views are their own. So the speakers are not speaking on behalf of any institution that they are affiliated with or have been affiliated with. And Dr. Thomas Bogardus is an associate professor of philosophy. He earned his PhD from the University of Texas and works in the areas of epistemology, philosophy of mind, and philosophy of gender. You can find his publications on...
Oh, man, dude. Just hearing that, how are you so confident? Like, yeah, I'll fuck this dude up. No problem. Did I read any of his papers? Nah, I don't give a fuck. Don't know any of that shit. Don't know. Don't care. Let's go. Oh, man.
His website, Googling his name, and both guests are linked in the description right now. With that, Dr.
Vaush right now? Did you just link the chest thing? The kid with the chest thing? I know that's what meme you just linked. I'm connected to your brain. Will kill forever. I'm connected to your brain. Oh, fuck. That's not what you linked. We're not connected. Never mind. I thought we were connected, but we're not. You linked a shit meme instead.
Bogardus, thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours for your opening as well.
I'm sorry,
All
it
right.
wasn't a shit meme.
Can I share my screen?
You bet.
Okay. So everybody can see that, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so if you're unable to see this for some reason, you should know that the slides are available at tinyurl.com/modern-day-debate-June, the month of June, and there's no spaces or capitals in there. Okay, I'm just gonna start my timer right now. So the topic of our conversation today is
The philosopher while listening to Vaush's opening.
Like,
Oh. I don't condone this language.
like Zoink Scoop, I think she's got an extra chromosome. Ruh-roh, Raggy, retard.
I don't condone that language. Show slides. You can see it in the telecoin. What do you want me to do?
this sentence, trans women are women, whether trans women are women. And what I want to try to do is explain why this is such a persistent philosophical question. I started thinking about this about 6 or 7 years ago. And so I'm going to share some of the things I've learned in that time and try to convey to you the landscape of the debate as I see it in a way that I hope will be useful and interesting no matter what your views are on this topic. And to try to explain why it's a persistent philosophical question, specifically what I'm going to do is try to show how on 6 common interpretations of this sentence, trans women are women, including 5 that Vaush has explored and endorsed, the sentence turns out not to be true.
Oh no, he's actually done research into Vaush. Oh my God. The PhD guy researched his fucking academic layman opponent, and Vaush has done no prep work. How is Vaush so confident? This dude is wild. I admire the bravado. Like, Jesus. Don't kill me. Hold on, sorry. No, but I need your blood. Okay.
So just a quick, I think, obvious clarification. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone that when people say trans women are women, what they mean is all trans women are women, not just some. So I think that's the question under consideration, whether all trans women are women. Now, to see whether that's true or false, to evaluate whether that's true or false, I think we would have to get clear on what it means to be a woman. We'd have to think about the meaning of that word woman in order to see whether it's true that all trans women are women. And so now I'm going to consider those views I promised a second ago. The first view is what we might call a biological view, according to which women are adult human females. Now, I think this is the sort of traditional, historical, ordinary sense of the word. This is what the word ordinarily means. There are a few reasons to think that. We can talk about these in the discussion period if you'd like. First of all, there's words for other species that we use for the adult males and the adult females of those species. And it would be pretty surprising if we didn't have similar words for the adult males and adult females of our species. This is the definition that virtually all dictionaries give. Of course,
Wait, you guys getting cuxed? I don't see any drops on my end. So if you're getting cuxed, it's on YouTube's end. Are we okay?
dictionaries aren't infallible. They make mistakes. But the fact that this is what dictionaries say is some evidence that this is the way the word is ordinarily used. But most importantly, I think the strongest bit of evidence is that, as far as I can tell, virtually all trans-inclusive philosophers agree that this is the ordinary use of the word. That doesn't mean they
Do you have a
recommend
brush for it now? Sorry.
but they acknowledge
That's-
and concede that this is what people ordinarily mean. I'm not sure whether Vaush agrees. He's said some things that sound like he might disagree. Just a few days ago, he said, there's so much arbitrarity with how these terms get posed. I don't think that a biologically prescriptivist attitude towards gender is the historically correct one. So possibly Vaush disagrees with this. But as I said, a lot of trans-inclusive philosophers agree that this is the way the word is used in dominant mainstream contexts. So here are some quotations. I'll let you read those on your own. But Robin Dembrov, Mari Mikola, Sally Haslinger, Jennifer Saul, these are all philosophers working very much from a trans-inclusive direction. Simone de Beauvoir, seems to use the word in this ordinary biological way as well. Again, that's not to mean they recommend this definition. A lot of these philosophers think that this is a problem and we need to change it, because when you think about the question whether all trans women are women, if being a woman requires being biologically female, then these philosophers think it's going to turn out that not all trans women are women. In fact, none are. And they consider that to be a problem. Here's a quotation from Katherine Jenkins saying as much, saying that if you fail to respect the gender identifications of trans people, that's a serious harm. And I think Vaush would agree that that is a problem. Back in 2021, said if someone makes an argument that a person isn't a woman when they claim to be a woman, I would say that's transphobic. And then here's another quotation saying something similar. I'll let you read. Okay, so as I say, a lot of philosophers wish to move away from this view of what it means to be a woman. And one alternative that they've explored is what we might call a social role view, according to which to be a woman is to be someone who functions or behaves or is treated a certain way socially. Now, sometimes Vaush seems to endorse this sort of view. Here's an example from back in March. So he says, I am a gender abolitionist, so I don't want these designations at all. But as long as they exist, these designations, man and woman, we're talking about social roles. And again, just a few days ago, so he says, given how arbitrary these definitions are, I think one where we acknowledge that man and woman, as we refer to it generally, is a social
Read
trait.
Vaush's chat during the PowerPoint the whole time is just calling the dude a nerd or saying he probably gets no pussy or shit like that. From Vaush's chat, a bunch of like suicidal, mentally ill kids are calling somebody else a nerd. I mean, okay.
Something which refers to social roles and attitudes, not biology. That's probably the one that hurts the fewest people. Okay, so that's the social role view. And now the question before us is, does this sentence come out as true or false on the social role?
Here's something that's interesting. And I've made arguments relating to social harm before, and I think it's legitimate to like analyze some things related to like what are the harms they cause for the definitions they use. It's a little bit hard to get into that though when you're trying to make like factual distinctions, because here's a question. Let's say somebody said, look at all the social harm that's caused by defining woman as biological and male and man as biological, right? Well, because of the harm that causes to trans people, we need to change the definitions. I might actually challenge somebody and I might say, do you actually believe that argument? Because let's say it was the case that cisgender people started committing suicide because we've changed the definitions of man and woman. If more cis people killed themselves than trans people killed themselves, would you walk that argument back and go, well, actually, because of like how harmful it is to cis people to have trans people given the same like gender terms or sex terms as them, now we need to go back and change the definitions because of the harm caused to cis people? I don't know if they would actually say that. I think that when you'd push them there, I think they would throw that argument out. They go, okay, well, never mind, okay. So we can't measure based on who's harmed more. I guess that's kind of silly. And I think you'd have to move on to the next part of the argument.
View. Will it be true that all trans women are women? Well, to figure that out, we'd have to know exactly what social role we're talking about. What is the social role that is taken to be definitive of womanhood? And it turns out it's pretty hard to say what social role we're talking about exactly, given, as Vaush said in his opening statement, all the variation across time and culture. It's hard to say what social role is had in common by all and only women throughout time and place. But even if you found one and said, that's the social role that's definitive of being a woman, there's a problem because there's no guarantee that all trans women will play that role, will occupy that position in society. Katherine Jenkins, again, a trans-inclusive philosopher, criticizes the social role view on those grounds, saying there may well be, and there easily could be, and there may in fact be, trans individuals who do not present as women and so are not treated as women, don't play this role, don't occupy this position in society. Or there could be trans individuals who do present as women but aren't read as women or aren't taken seriously or aren't treated as women, in which case they won't occupy the right position in society in order to count as a woman on this social role view.
Hello?
So my sense of the state of play
Obama.
In the current philosophical debate is philosophers have moved away from this social role view because it turns out false that all trans women are women on this view. And at least in the popular culture and even in the philosophical literature, the view that's sort of rising to prominence is a self-ID view. I think that's coming to be the most popular view, as I said, at least at the popular level. So on this view, we're told to be a woman is to be someone who identifies as a woman.
More coffee.
And I won't be the first to notice that, oh, well, here's a quotation from Vaush endorsing that, by the way. Okay, but I won't be the first to notice that it looks like there's a threat of circularity here.
I don't know where my phone is.
We were asked what a woman is, and the definition used the word woman when defining the term.
Fuck.
But it may be that there's no actual circularity here if the word woman in the definition means something else than the meaning we're supposed to get from this definition. So let me give you one example. Here's something Vaush said. He said, if you want, you can say a woman is a person who would like to internally and externally adhere to the social roles and expectations associated with a woman, or at the very least, a social archetype. So again, threat of circularity because we're using the word woman there, but suppose we meant woman in the ordinary sense, adult human females, just suppose that's what was meant. So it's not the very same sense to be defined, it's another sense. Well, the problem is that many women won't want that. Many women don't wish to adhere to the social roles and expectations associated with being an adult human female, as Catherine Jenkins has pointed out.
Yeah, that's true too. I noticed it does. I don't know if I'm the only autistic person that does this. Does anybody else besides me take notes during arguments? Like, I feel like it's really important if I want to address everything somebody says, or maybe I just have a smaller brain so I can't remember everything. Maybe Vaush is actually remembering every single argument with salience in his brain right now. But I feel like now would probably be a good time to take notes. No? Or maybe he just... Oh, Erudite does this? Yeah, because she's copying me, obviously. Everybody does for a hamster. Is he in chat right now? Everybody slurp for a hamster. During arguments with my mom, yes. Good job.
About traditional gender norms
about
by Catherine Jenkins says, for example, not shaving legs. Elizabeth Barnes, another trans-inclusive philosopher, points out that there might be some women with cognitive disabilities such that they lack the ability to have this desire, to conceptualize this desire, to want to adhere to these social roles. And more relevant for our purposes.
Oh shit! I don't know if did I ever go over the Vaush bad song on stream. Do you guys know why he doesn't have that as a dono alert anymore? Did we ever talk about this? The apparently the Vaush bad guy is an anti-fan now. I guess he doesn't like Vaush anymore. So he unlisted the song on the internet, and I think he added to like the description of the song or a comment. He's like, I don't like Vaush anymore, so I'd prefer if he doesn't use my shit or something like that. Or find the original comment, so it's not like I'm misphrasing, but damn, rip. Not good.
Turn out that some trans women might not like to adhere to these social roles or these expectations. For example, some trans women who say they don't owe you femininity. So the first point was just, if this definition is not circular, then whatever the word woman means in the definition, it's going to turn out that not all trans women are women. What if it is circular? What if we're told, no, to be a woman is to identify as a woman in the very same sense to be defined? So Vaush is not so sure that there's a problem here. Back in May, he said, my definition of gender, which is just a woman is someone who identifies as one. People complain about it being circular, but I don't think that matters. So I think it does matter for at least two reasons that I'll try to explain. One is that a circular definition can't convey any meaning.
True.
It can't actually tell you what the word means. But secondly, even if the word has a meaning, it didn't get it from this definition, but suppose it has a meaning, the statement that to be a woman is to identify as a woman has to be false. It's necessarily false. So
he's not even debating with Vaush in the present. He's debating past Vaush. Well, it's just opening statements.
What are you doing around here?
They're just doing opening statements right now. Oh, here it is. I think the bit has run its course. If you still manage to find this video through whatever means, I actually wanted to delete the video for a while because I hated it. Was convinced it had to make its run through the culture first. It's hard to take pride in something you made in about 4 hours total of manic frenzy. Just unlisting for the insane schizos like me that saved this and want to come back to relive the days when Vaush was a good streamer. Sorry.
I'll explain these two in turn. So one problem is that circular definitions can't convey meaning. Here's one way to see that. What we're being told is that someone is a woman if and only if she identifies as a woman. But now suppose we ask, well, what does it mean? What does woman mean there in the definition? What are you identifying as when you identify as a woman? on this alternative, we're being told the very same sense to be defined. So what you're identifying as is someone who identifies as a woman. That's what you're identifying as, because that's what a woman is. But notice woman shows up again in the definition. And so suppose we do another round of recursion. And now the definition says to be a woman is to be someone who identifies as...
This is RGR's argument, one of the arguments she used against Demon Mama, actually, this recursive argument. But I mean, like, this is such a silly, obvious argument. You can't have circular definitions for a wide variety of reasons. If we accept circularity for definitions, then the logical end to that is literally the destruction of language, right? Words no longer convey meaning, and without meaning, you just have a bunch of private language, meaning people are just uttering things and no one knows what anybody means with anything, right?
Someone who identifies as someone who identifies as, and you see that this will just keep going. We'll never eliminate the circularity. It goes on forever. You've got this infinite descent. And there's this irredeemable void there in the definition, which means that the definition never expresses any proposition. It never actually tells you what the word means. It just keeps promising you a meaning if you just do one more recursion, but you never get there. So that's one way to see why circular definitions are deficient. Here's another way. It's sort of a little sillier, but suppose I tell you that people collect baseball cards and pogs. I don't really know what a pog is. I collect blargs. And suppose you wonder what a blarg is. And I define it for you in a circular way.
A blarg is something that can
is just
blarg.
Anything that has this really cool feature. It's a blarg. So clearly that's a circular definition. Now, if you really think that there's no problem with circular definitions,
Getting ready for my closing
then
statement. After
you
this is
should
done.
be able to find me a blarg, especially if I give you a hint that there's one in the room with you now, and I offer you $50 if you could just find that blarg and bring it to me. So if there's nothing wrong with circular definitions, you should be able to find a blarg. You should be in a position to know what a blarg is.
Wait, you
but
can do this,
obviously,
though.
you're not in that position.
I'm muted, of course.
You can't find this blarg.
You can use circular
because
definitions
the definition
to
was
derive
circular.
meaning socially.
No, hold on. Stop. What are you saying, bro? Circular definitions by definition don't give you anything because that's what the circularity means. You can't define it with respect to something else. If you're saying that there's some other way to find a definition for it, then it no longer becomes circular, right?
So that's another way.
Damn, dude. Vaush is going the ultimate skeptic. Well, here I am. I'm actually here to define circularity. I'm here to defend circular meanings. Like, bro, good luck. Oh my God, dude. This is going to be brutal.
To see why
Because you're
circular
referring to an
definitions are
archetype
deficient.
that shares that term.
Okay, but suppose that somehow the word woman got meaning independently, maybe by pointing or ostension. That's a way that we define words commonly. I think still, even if the word does have a meaning, the claim that to be a woman is to identify as a woman, someone's a woman if and only if she identifies as a woman, that has to be false. And here's why. On this view, on this proposal, if that phrase being a woman refers to anything, then we're told it refers to a very interesting characteristic, a very interesting feature. It's a feature that someone has if and only if she identifies as having it. There's this tight connection between having the feature, being a woman, and identifying as having the feature, identifying as a woman. But if you think about it, I think you'll realize that there simply is no feature like that. There's no characteristic that you could have if and only if you identify as having it. There's no way you could be if and only if you identify as being that way. Just think about ordinary features like being funny or being tall or being rich or something like that. It's one thing to be rich. It's something else to identify as being rich. You could be rich without identifying as being rich. You could identify as being rich without actually being rich, and so on. And this just holds generally for every feature, any property you choose, any feature you choose. And so what that means, what 1 and 2 entail here is, on this view, the phrase being a woman doesn't refer to anything because there's no feature that answers to this definition. There's no such thing. And so a kind of surprising result is, on this view, it looks like there are no women and there are no trans women, therefore. And for our purposes, what follows is it's false that all trans women are women, or at least it's not true. In fact, it looks like none are, because there are no women at all.
That would be all, right? If there are no women.
Okay, here's a couple
no
other
trans
views. I think
women,
those are...
No, I think that statement, when he said that, like, well, it can't be, he didn't say, well, it can't be false, but it's probably not true. I think that would mean it's like indefinable, right? Undefinable. It can't be true that all trans women are women if there is no even like coherent definition for women. But it can't be false either. It's just like undefinable at that point, right?
Sort of the big three, but here are some other views that have been discussed by Vaush. One is gender abolition. On this view, ideally, there are no genders. So ideally, women don't exist. Here's Vaush expressing that sort of view. I think gender is a destructive concept, he says, so eventually I want it gone. Sally Haslinger, trans-inclusive philosopher at MIT, says something similar. She adopted a social role view. She thought to be a woman is to be oppressed. So she says a main part of the project of feminism is to eliminate women, which sounds kind of surprising, but that was her view. So I think we can at least agree that on this view, if you ask how things should be ideally, they would say ideally there are no women at all. And they would say ideally there are no trans women. So that's a kind of surprising implication of that view. Here's another one, which I think Vaush might want to defend today. He says in his opening statement that he says prescriptively trans women are women. So that's another view that I've heard expressed in his videos. On this view, when you say trans women are women, what you're actually doing is giving a kind of command or prescription. You're saying you should speak and act as though trans women are women is literally true. You should speak and act as though trans women are women is literally true.
When it comes to the balance
and
of
if you ask
definitions,
why, as
all
Vaush said in his
statements are
opening
prescriptive.
statement, it's justified by utility, by good consequences, by benefits.
What?
So here's a statement of Vaush sort of expressing that. So he says, what people mean when they
All
say they're women
definitions
is,
prescriptive?
woman is a
I don't know if I
social
believe
category
that.
I'd like to
Maybe.
be a part of. I want to think of myself as part of it and be thought of as part of it. Talia Mae Betcher, a trans philosopher, says something similar. In trans, inclusive, and queer communities, gender presentation indicates how you want.
Sometimes I think Vaush misses like levels of definitions. I don't know how to, it's very hard to like explain this. Well, I guess you could argue I don't understand it well if I can't explain it well. Vaush does like a weird thing where, how can I say this? He'll miss a level. Like he'll say something like this. Every single, no matter how many options you have, it's binary. And I'll be like, wait, what do you mean? Like, let's say I have 7 options. That's not binary. There's 7 options. And he'll say, well, there are either 7 options or there aren't 7 options. Therefore, it's truly actually binary. I'm like, well, no, not real kind. And he's like, well, it's binary. There either are or there aren't, right? He'll make a statement that's true, but he's applying it to the wrong level, or like he's not contextualizing. I don't know, contextualizing level. I don't know how. I don't have the formal diction to like explain this, but there's like he isn't applying it to the right level of the conversation sometimes, and then things get really weird. I think this happens in this conversation at the very, very, very end. I didn't listen to much of this, but
Want to be treated. So if you think that we should treat people how they want to be treated, then when you say trans women are women, what you might be communicating is we should treat people how they want to be treated. We should treat trans women how they want to be treated. Okay, and again, it's justified by utility. So I'll just point out with respect to the prescriptive claim, whether this is something we should do, something that doesn't seem to enter into everybody's moral calculations is whether or not what we're saying is true.
60 seconds left.
60 seconds left.
What?
Okay, and given what I've said so far, it looks like this statement, trans women are women, is literally not true.
What?
And so we can at least agree on that.
Wait.
If we asked this prescriptivist view, strictly speaking, literally, are all trans women women? I think, given what we've said, the view has to agree with, has to say no. Okay, let's see if I can fit this in. I ran out of space on my slide, but sometimes Vaush seems to be a nihilist or an anti-realist about gender. Sometimes he says gender concepts are arbitrary social designations, and in reality, there are no men, no women, etc. Here's a quotation from Vaush back in 2019 saying, all categories are socially constructed. They don't exist in nature.
Wait, that's true.
We built them. So if you hold that view and then you ask, well, really, literally, are all trans women women? I think the view has to say no. In reality, no. Okay, so I tried to show that the statement trans women are women is not true on every view we've looked at, including 5 from Vaush. Thank you for your attention.
whoa.
Thank you very much for that opening. And with
Check Twitter. Wait, did the guy respond to me? I want to have a discussion tonight. I'm not sure when I could do it. Unfortunately, I'm sort of in a decompression stage for the Vaush debate. I did a lot of prep for that, and I thought a lot about it, and the thought of doing another one is a little daunting at the moment. Oh, no. I think he's worried that I want to have like a hardcore debate, which I don't really. I just kind of want to like poke his brain a little bit and see what his thoughts are. But if this conversation, he says he needs to decompress after, or maybe I shouldn't leak his DMs, I guess. But if this conversation is as brutal as I think it's going to be, I can understand him being like, I don't want to talk to another fucking YouTuber debate bro on this shit and have like another 12-hour like back and forth with some guy that's just like trying to, you know, gotcha me the entire time.
With that, we're going to jump into open conversation. Want to say, folks, thrilled to let you know we have a lot of upcoming debates. You don't want to miss them. So, for example, just confirmed today at the bottom right of your screen whether or not it is okay for kids to go to drag queen shows with, you betcha, Vaush and Alex Stein.
Go to drag queen
Tuesday.
shows with
You
Vaush?
don't want to miss it. Hit
What?
that subscribe button so you don't miss it. And with that, we're going to jump into open conversation. Thanks so much, gentlemen. The floor is all yours.
All right. I'm sure that you won't mind after that if I take a moment to respond to your premises, as I have plenty to say, as it seems we both do. So the issue I have here is that I feel as though you've misrepresented some of my views and definitions here, and what's more, all of these views are incoherent. The construct I often find is that people treat the biological view as though, because it's the traditionally accepted one, it's the coherent one, but in reality, it's nothing but. There's a reason why Nature, arguably one of the most respected scientific journals in the history of the species, has been putting out article after op-ed about how the idea that sex and gender are the same, or that gender should be considered an extension of a biological category, is ahistorical, ascientific, and just false.
Okay, you have to be careful with this. If I am debating layman, I will cite expert opinion and say, this is why you're wrong, or you need to contend with this study, okay? But if you want to have a discussion with somebody who's not a layman, it's actually not enough for you to just cite expert opinion, because arguably this person is an expert, and two, they're gonna want to like argue about what's being cited. It's not just enough. It's not just enough for you to say, well, Nature says this, because he would say, well, I would disagree. And then you have to substantiate the disagreement. You can say, well, Nature said it. That's not enough in these types of conversations, to just say, well, the journal said this.
And the reason for that is because what you obfuscate when you refer to the biological sex version of gender is the literal millennia of arguments and inconsistencies over what exactly it means to draw that line. Of course, for most of humans' history, we have no idea what chromosomes or even hormone washes are, so only recently has a full understanding of the actual things that differentiate biological males and females even been known to us. But even leaving that aside, long-standing have been the practices of intersex people having their genitals mutilated by doctors who want to get them cleanly fit in one category.
I feel like so. I've said this before. This is something I notice when I'm debating people, that whenever you hear me try to cool down a conversation, this is why. And I'm starting to see it happen already in this one at the beginning. Whenever somebody feels like they're losing a conversation, it feels like they start to go for like, okay, I'm not going to win this on whatever grounds. We're going to start going for optics wins. And it feels like Vaush is already doing that. Although maybe I'm judging a bit too hastily. We'll see. But oof, we'll see.
Or another, biologically male or biologically female, often to the psychological detriment of those people, because those doctors are trying to force people into a binary construct that just doesn't work. And the existence of intersex people at all simply destroys the concept of a sex-based gender, because a binary is just that.
This is an argument that Vaush would be smart enough not to make if he'd at least just read that paper. I know it took me an hour to read it on a stream, but if I was reading about probably a 20, 30-minute paper, it's not long. If somebody's going to give you an 18-page paper where you can skip the footnotes, this argument is already completely addressed in that paper, right? Just because you don't have a clean... And I can already play the next 10 minutes of argumentation around this line. Not good, Vaush.
A binary. You can't have a system that you claim is...
It's like a cheat sheet to every argument the student is going to make. Yeah, because remember, in this guy's... Remember, this guy's already argued around... Vaush is making the argument from biologically intersex people and vagueness. And the guy's already pretty cleanly summarized this in a syllogism, pretty cleanly responded to the syllogism. And Vaush is just going to retread all of these arguments without even realizing that he's walking into a trap, really, of his own making, because he didn't read his paper.
coherent when it's like, well, 99% of people fit to it. Well, 99% of people leaves out millions. And what are those millions then? Aberrant counterexamples? No, the system never functioned, and it never made that much sense, and it never survived scrutiny, by the way. It's not as though medieval French peasants were under...
Why do you think Vaush continually refuses to do the bare amount of work to prepare for debates or talks or even fucking coverage of the news? Because there's no viewership in that. Who the fuck cares? Nobody wants to watch you like I lost I think 700 viewers reading the paper. Nobody wants to watch you read papers. And I probably only kept those viewers because I had Vaush's name baited in my title, right? People there's not a big payoff in media for doing homework. Generally it's just blood sports and shit.
Going significant sociological analysis of the concept of the social construction of sex. They didn't have sociology back then. It's a fairly modern construction. When it comes to what we talk about, with the prescription of gender, and all statements of definition are prescriptive, by the way, because we do create these definitions. We didn't unearth them in stone tablets.
That's really weird. That's a really fucking weird, strange, and queer argument. All definitions are prescriptive because definitions aren't discovered in nature. Using that line of argumentation, I can almost argue that every single thing ever is prescriptive because nothing is technically found in nature. Trees are prescriptive because by defining a tree, I'm telling a tree, or I'm telling you what a tree ought to be. That's a very, 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 very weird, very strange. Yikes. Okay. I wonder if this guy, because this guy's a philosophy PhD, I wonder if he starts to hear this and he's like, oh, fucking kill me. Because it's not even undergrads. Well, maybe. I'm trying to think, do streamers sound like undergrads or do they sound like uneducated grad students? Because a grad student will at least know some things, but damn, dude. It's I think I tweeted this last night. My favorite thing is debate streamer reinvents philosophy and science, on the fly.
It's written by God. We had to make efforts to understand them. What we're really doing is trying to find what serves us best. Now, there is meaningful utility in understanding the difference between a biological male and a biological female. There are categorical differences that are worth respecting in a biological sense. But that doesn't encompass the wide variety of social differences between most men and most women that are largely socially ascribed. So when you have this dissonance here, where so much of what it means to be a man isn't actually what it means to be biologically male, in both the modern world and throughout history in many cultures, there are differences between those two things, we have an issue. What is a consistent, rigorous, 100% of the time effective, applicable mode of gender? What works? The answer is nothing. It simply doesn't.
Do you think he'd be able to get any grant from the PhD on the subject, or would you just focus on talking about the philosophical objectivity? I'm just curious about his thoughts on... I'm just curious if he has a way to reconcile that some people seem to have a different understanding of their sex in their mind than what their body presents. And then if he doesn't have a gender-sex distinction, I wonder how he would draw that distinction there. I'm just curious what he would say. I don't really want to debate him because I don't even know how much we disagree on things. I'm just curious how he would respond to that. It feels like the term social construct has ruined every discussion for the past 3 years. Yeah, I take the blame for that. And I've said as much on stream. I've tried to undo this over the past 2 years. I would use terms like socially constructed a lot to show you that we are able to reconstruct terms if we need to do that. But one thing that I didn't do a good job at saying is just because something is a social construct doesn't, one, it doesn't mean that there are no underlying facts of the matter, and two, it doesn't mean that it's arbitrary or worthless. Vaush says this a lot. Social constructs are arbitrary. That's not true. It's the opposite. Arbitrary implies a randomness. Social construction implies a purposefulness. The social construct is not arbitrary. It's purposefully done. We've purposefully drawn a box around something because there is some meaning for it. But he uses these words like social construct and arbitrary to it basically gives him this ethereal position where he can attack and defend any concept at any point in time, every time he wants to. He has this ability to maneuver around topics, throwing out these loose philosophy terms, where on one end, he'll be arguing that, trans women are women because women is a gender and that performance can be anything. And then the next sentence, he'll be like, also, I'm a gender abolitionist. I don't actually believe gender is even real as a thing. And then in the next sentence, he'll be arguing about, something, he just has the ability to slide between all of these positions because he is, the ultimate skeptic on epistemology. He said as much, right? The winners decide if the Holocaust even happened or not. He's the ultimate skeptic in regards to metaphysics. Anything can be anything at any point because it's all socially constructed. He's the ultimate skeptic in ethics. Well, what is good, and what is bad is what is bad. And that goodness is with respect to my axioms as being good, and that badness is because it disagrees with my axioms, but to them it would be good. And consequentially, whatever's he's constructed like all of these black hole positions through from epistemology to metaethics to or from epistemology to ethics to metaphysics. He has all of these black hole positions where he can simultaneously attack and defend every single thing from any point in time, because he like bit a few philosophy terms from my stream and he employs them in the worst ways possible. It's like, but it's just really funny to watch it happen. Yeah. We could make like an AI bot to throw out like Vaush philosophy sentences, and it would probably predict a lot of what he would say.
Stupid concept, and we really shouldn't be respecting it much as a social construct at all. As long as people do respect it, we should go by the definitions that hurt people the least. That is, after all, why we build our definitions, to serve human utility. And to that effect, you call it the self-ID view. The prescriptive view I don't think is inconsistent, but I stand by this. What we mean when we say woman, a woman, is a person who chooses to adhere to a broad, constructed collection of values, aesthetics, forms, rules.
And the funny thing is, Vaush will start talking, and I don't think he realizes he doesn't even agree with what he's saying. So like what he's saying right here, well, a woman is somebody that adheres to a broad set of, really? So if somebody were a super tomboyish presenting person, but then they ID'd as a woman, would you say that's not a woman? Well, what do you mean by that, Vaush? Because now you're arguing against self-ID. When you're saying that a woman is, and now you're going to go on to define a set of characteristics of what a woman is, now you no longer believe in self-ID. Because self-ID is inherently contradictory to any rigid definition you give, because self-ID is amorphous and can be anything, right? So he doesn't even believe a lot of the times, or this is kind of, debating Vaush on philosophy would be hard, because my go-to for debates is usually to point out inconsistencies, but every time Vaush utters a new statement, it must be like, I don't know, like if you're like coding and you're like in a compiler, like every time you add a new line of code, you're somehow creating like one new line of code gives you like 400 more errors every single time you add a line. And that's like what Vaush is, right? Like doesn't compile, goes to fix one thing, 400 more bugs, goes to fix one more thing, 400 more bugs. Like every time he speaks, it is like riddled with inconsistencies with everything he said before. But he might say that inconsistency is actually a socially constructed thing. It's not like inconsistencies are found in nature. Like there is no, like the desire for consistency in and of itself is a prescriptive thing that is arbitrary in nature and has no like actual foundation in the real world. I don't know. Maybe he would say that. You know, who the fuck knows? The principle of explosion actually isn't a bad thing. Explosions being bad is just a socially constructed thing. But what about the explosions that happen in the center of the sun that heats our planet Earth? So if you just said the principle of explosion is bad, but I think explosions are good because the fusion that happens in the sun actually allows us to survive. So I don't know. You might actually say something like that. I have no idea, you know? Jesus. Okay, let's sit down. Okay. Jesus Christ.
Perspectives that we consider to be a part of what it means to be a woman. There is no consistency here, and you'll never find it. No more than you could find
high-level
consistency
ideas
in the
here.
definition of what it means to be cool. You know, find me a fine line on that. Point in the room where the cool, you know, the cool protons are, or the cool radiation. It's not present, and you'll never find it. But still, we have very strong ideas about what it means to be cool. And we argue, but the arguments are for a purpose. Because finding out who's cool, what's really cool, is socially useful, as is whatever definition we arrive at.
The sad thing is, I bet his fucking chat is soying the fuck out, thinking that he's like dominating the guy right now. I bet his chat is all like, I'm too lazy to read it, but.
Cool, what's really cool, is socially useful, as is whatever definition we arrive at, which hurts
these guys hate philosophy too. No, they like philosophy. Who do they hate? Perspective philosophy is the one they hate.
Smallest number of people concerning
cool,
gender.
Vaush.
And that is why I believe trans women are women, because all definitional statements are necessarily prescriptive, and as long as we are dealing with a system that is fundamentally, constructedly absurd, we should at least refer to it in ways that harm people to the least possible extent.
I'm so curious, like where this guy's brain is right now, like how the fuck he even wants to begin to climb through the tangled mess of that statement. Oh my goodness. Let's see what he does.
Okay, so you started that by saying you were going to respond to my premises, but
he didn't
I'm struggling to see how any of this responded to any premise of any argument I gave. So let's go through some of the things you said. You said all of these views are incoherent. You said there's no coherent concept of gender. Is that right? Did I get you right there?
You will not find me a definition of gender that is...
I like how... It's so weird seeing Vaush do this, because he's normally... I thought maybe he's a smart guy. Anytime... Here's another indicator that somebody is like, knows they're fucked in a debate. You'll see this happen with me a lot. I'll try to restate somebody's argument. I'll be like, so would you agree with this or that? And they'll never, ever, ever agree with the restatement. They always have to add more words because because in their mind, this is what they're thinking. Fuck. If he's accurately restating my argument and he's not worried, he's probably about to fucking knock it down. I can't let him restate my argument because he's got a knockdown for it. So every time I'm like, so when you said 1 + 1 = 2, just or 1 + 2 = 3. So if I reverse, it's like 2 + 1, you would also say equals 3, right? And they're like, well, when I said 1 + 2 = 3, if you had for 2 + 1, if it was 2 piles of hay and 1 pile of hay and they came together, that would equal 1. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Wait, I'm just trying to understand what the fuck you're talking about. Wait, well, hold on. Wait a second. Are you changing it? They'll never, ever, ever let you restate whatever the fuck they've said because they're worried that if you restate it accurately, you have an accurate knockdown coming next. It's so frustrating when I'm in a debate and people do this to me. God, it triggers the fuck out of me. But
is that right? Did I get you right there?
You will not find me a definition of gender that is 100% consistent and all-encompassing and has no flaws in it. There are no such things. It can't be found.
So there's no consistent definition of gender. So no matter who I asked, if I asked anybody, what is a woman, no matter what they say, you think there's going to be some sort of impossibility or contradiction or inconsistency.
You will always be able to find a hole or an exception, whether they take a biological or a self-ID, a social role, or an abolition.
But you can just say yes, Vaush. Notice he's essentially kind of restating part of the guy. Just say yes. It's okay. He summarized your view accurately. That's okay.
Perspective, there will always be. Well, gender abolition is a prescription, not a description of.
I think this is a nervous habit too, where people are they kind of want to keep rattling too because they feel a little bit nervous that they have to keep going and going and going. Yeah.
Current gender states, but no matter what a person's definition of a woman is, there is always going to be something you can pin them on.
Okay, so then it sounds like your view entails there are no women because there's no true definition of woman.
No, not at all. There are plenty of social constructions that I think have meaning and serve utility, even if there are no consistencies to it. I think cool people exist, but I don't think I could ever find a single definition of cool that is perfectly delineates in all categories and situations between cool and uncool people.
Okay, so you said the concepts are incoherent and inconsistent, but I think what you just mean is perhaps vague, allow for borderline cases, or difficult to articulate. I think maybe that's what you mean when you say all definitions are incoherent and inconsistent. All definitions.
And he does. So again, remember, Vaush would have read the paper. This guy's already argued relating to borderline cases. So Vaush should recognize that he's about to step into this guy's already formalized argument here. But I don't think he has any idea. But we'll see.
Gender anyway. I think what you mean is they allow for borderline cases. They'll be vague in various ways. And what was the second thing I said? Vague in various ways and hard to articulate, difficult to articulate. It'll be hard to come up with or express or verbalize a definition that includes everyone who should be included and excludes everyone who should be excluded. So that's the view. I guess I would agree with that. Yeah, definitions are hard to come by typically. And most of them, especially in biology, are vague and admit of borderline cases. But nevertheless, they may be true. There may be true definitions, even if they're difficult to express or articulate. You gave the example, one of your arguments against the biological definition of woman was that we didn't know about chromosomes many years ago. Well, first of all, I don't think biological sex is defined in terms of chromosomes. But let's just use the example of water. Maybe we could agree that water is H2O. That was true even before we knew about chemistry.
Oh, no.
That was the definition of water before anybody knew anything about chemistry, before we knew about H2O. Back when Aristotle thought water was just an element. Nevertheless, it was H2O.
True.
I'm sorry?
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah. All you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's
oh, no. This guy has to be like, what the fuck did I agree to? Oh, shit, dude. It's too much.
We're referring to terms and definitions here.
No, I'm referring to water, the stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
He's referring to the thing itself. He's not... Oh, fuck. I wish I knew... I feel like I have so many problems with philosophy, and everybody says, oh, Wittgenstein talks about this. Maybe one day I'll read his book. I never will, or any of his books. Fuck that loser, okay? But there's a difference between a thing and, like, a reference to a thing. Ram might know the distinction here. But, like, there's a difference between the thing that is water and then like the word, the reference to water. And the philosopher here, a use mention distinction might be. The philosopher guy here is talking about the thing itself. That's why he says H2O, not the label of the thing, not the reference to the thing. Like if I show you like, I can't. Well, like here, like if I show you this and I ask you, what is this? Do you know what this is? And you guys say a phone. I would say, no, you dumb fuck. It's a pixel on your computer screen. How stupid are you? And you'd be like, well, yeah, obviously. Or if I show you like a map, someone in chat said a map. If I show you a map and I go, what is this? And you're like, oh, that's America. No, it's a fucking map, you dipshit. What do you mean it's America? If I show you a map of it, well, you're like, well, yeah, but it's referring to the thing of America, obviously, right? It's like, no, it's a map. Like this is like a mentally... I don't even know what you would say for like a person that can't understand the difference between these two things. And I'm sure Vaush would understand the difference. He just hasn't. Yeah, Jesus. But
the stuff that
talking
fills
about the word one.
Many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay.
And now he's trying to fight because Vaush is thinking like if I can just get this motherfucker to not define. Vaush is the fucking flip side of the conservative that I argued that tried to argue that clouds were alive because he thought if he could define clouds as being alive, he could protect a pro-life stance. He was like, yeah, I think clouds are living. And now Vaush is like, well, if I just don't let this slimy motherfucker, if he can't define what water is, no way will he be able to define what woman is. I guarantee you that's his thought process in his head right now.
What, right?
And we're referring to terms and definitions here.
No, I'm referring to water, the stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
The stuff that
talking
fills
about the word one.
Many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay. Do you honestly?
He doesn't even know how to respond. He actually gets so fucking owned. This is actually the first monster W for Vaush here. This guy just got his mouth shit in. He's like, fuck me, you're right, dude. Many things do fill lakes and rivers. I don't know how to respond to that. I want Vaush to sit on a board where they do like thesis defenses or whatever. It would just be so fucking funny.
Here.
No, I'm referring to water, the stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
The stuff that
talking
fills
about the word one.
Many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay. Do you honestly not know what I mean when I talk about water, or are you just being a little difficult?
I think you made a mistake before you began that argument, which is that you said just because people didn't always know something doesn't mean that it can't be true. But that can't be the case when we're talking about definitions. Things that are true have constructed premises that lead necessarily to an outcome, a resolution.
Wait, what did he just say? Things that are true have constructed premises that lead to an outcome. I don't even know I don't know what he's saying. I can't actually. Things that are deductively true will stem naturally from premises, if that's what he means, or things that are true, like facts of the matter, things that are found in nature. I don't know what he actually means here.
But a definition is something...
Oh, this guy's looking off to the side. He's trying to figure out what the fuck did this guy just say. I wonder if he's worried in his head, like, am I getting intellectually outpaced right now? Is this guy like on 7 levels of philosophy deeper than me?
Applied presuppositionally. You can say
play one more time.
Constructed premises that lead necessarily. We're talking about definitions. Things that are true have constructed premises that lead necessarily to an outcome, a resolution. But a definition is something applied presuppositionally. You can say, for example, that the light, the spectrum of light that we see, the visible spectrum.
A definition is applied presuppositionally. I don't know if there's a difference between a presupposition and an axiom, but I think a presupposition is a statement given as is with no justification. I don't know if a definition can be given as is with no a definition seems by definition to have a reference to something that justifies it. But I don't know. I'm not sure. Vaush is working on levels of philosophy that are out of reach to me right now, okay? I can't get this. I can't access these thoughts right here.
Light is something that exists outside of our perception, and that is certainly true. But how we perceive it is not existentially correct. And what's more, the definition between red, orange, and yellow is not something that you can find proven anywhere in the real world. We have to arrive at arbitrary distinction.
Even that's kind of weird, because if he wants to go with colors, if I was the philosophy guy, I would jump on this. If you want to go with colors, that's fine, because we can have a somewhat socially constructed reference, but we're grouped around things that are probably factually true. And in this case, we're talking about the wavelength of electromagnetic radiation, right? We could very specifically say that, like, well, you agree that this wavelength is different than this wavelength, right? Unless Vaush is going to say, like, magnets, or not magnets, sorry, math and everything is socially constructed, and words are, Zoom calls are socially constructed. I don't know where the fuck we're at right now, but okay.
So that's.
Can I just ask you about water again? Do you not think water is H2O?
I think we've come up with a term to describe what we refer to as water. There are, of course, other cultures that have had.
He's not talking about the term. We came up with a term to talk about water.
He's talking about the thing.
term is water, and we came up with terms to talk about hydrogen and oxygen. But here's a sentence: water is H2O. You know what those terms mean. Now think about what idea is expressed by the words. What's the thought that's expressed? We could express it in many different languages. Now think about the thought that's expressed by that sentence. That's true, isn't it? The thought that is expressed by the sentences. Water is H2O.
What do you think?
And it was
you can't answer,
long before we got here, long before humans got here. Water has always...
I don't know if this is kind of a prediction I'm making. I don't know if Vaush will ever agree, because I feel like I've already identified that, like, he's kind of in, I don't want to say bad faith mode, but he's going to be squirming for the rest of this. I don't know if Vaush is going to answer a single question for the rest of this conversation. I think he's going to, like, pivot and do this, like, dumb, like, well, I don't know if anything is real for probably the rest of the talk. But we'll see. Maybe not.
It's been H2O.
Well, ice, of course, is also H2O, but water is what we define it as within a given, state.
Ice is also water. It's not liquid water.
Yeah, but colloquially, people refer to ice as ice and water as water,
yes.
And whether or not they're going to use either of those definitions is going to come down to context. And what about heavy water, 2H2O, or deuterium oxide, which is referred to as water and is in fact a type of water, an isotope.
2H2O, I believe that notation just means you have two elements of H2O. Am I forgetting chemistry? Or does he mean to say H2O2? Because H2O2 would not be an isotope. An isotope, if I can remember, an isotope uses the same formula, but it'll have, is it a positive or negative based on, fuck, I don't remember. It's been fuck chemistry. He means deuterium. Is deuterium an extra proton? Is that what deuterium means? I hate chemistry, dude. Fuck that. He means D2O? Or an extra neutron. Okay.
But it's not.
Oh, no.
In fact, H2O. There's an extra hydrogen atom holding on there, making the substance dense.
Oh, no. Okay. This is why I'm going to give a tip to all of the budding philosophers in chat, okay? There's a reason... Okay, and then I'm going to trigger the fuck out of all the science people. There's a reason why people always talk about quantum physics and stuff, because nobody actually knows anything about quantum entanglement. That means information can travel faster than light. Like uncertainty principle, that means many worlds is true. There's a reason why people use quantum physics, because nobody knows about quantum physics, okay? In chemistry is a little bit more defined, okay? If you have a certain molecule, you can't change, if you change the number of atoms in a molecule, it's going to be something different. Water is always going to be H2O. If you have like H2O2 or H4O4, I don't even know, if you do biochem, there's a million, you can't just add atoms to it and have the same molecule. You're creating a totally different thing. You can't, don't go to chemistry. If you want to bullshit about knowing anything about science, okay, just go to quantum physics, because everybody just says random shit about quantum physics all the fucking time. Don't do chemistry, because too many people will remember from their high school chemistry class that you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And before somebody emails me, and I'm actually totally wrong, but.
Sir.
So if this is taking
heavy water, let's see if I can remember this. Isn't heavy water that has a higher concentration of deuterium isotopes or something in it as opposed to like normal water? It's just like the composition of is a form of water that contains only deuterium. Oh, maybe it's only deuterium, and it's not necessarily the composition of normal water to not normal water, rather than the common hydrogen 1 isotope. Presence of heavy hydrogen isotopes gives water different nuclear properties, increase the mass, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Back to chemistry class, but did you say deuterium? Is that right? Is that heavy water?
Yes.
If that's just an isotope, is it an isotope of oxygen that makes that? If that's an isotope, it's still oxygen and it's still H2O, and that is still H2O. That's still water. That's
a different chemical compound than water. Certainly, if people wanted to refer to it as a different type of thing, not water, but let's say they chose the term waterium. I don't know. Scientists come up with wacky names. If they want to,
I think he
come up with a
misspoke
term
because he said extra atom. Well, no, because now he's using words like compound, which like when we're talking like compounds or mixtures. I don't think that has anything to do with molecules. Compounds, I think, are two different molecules mixed together that like dissolve into each other. Is that a compound in a mixture, or is that a solution in a mixture? I don't know. I just like if you want to have an argument about chemistry, I feel like you should probably know a lot of chemistry before you come in and like start to. Well, I'm gonna debate you on like the differences in like these like highly, they're not even advanced, but like these pretty nuanced like chemical ideas. It seems kind of weird to just bring this up out of nowhere because now the conversation is gonna get ultra bogged down in like random shit. He corrects himself. It's not a matter that he corrects himself. He's my guess now. Maybe this sounds bad faith. It sounds like he's just reading chat and copy pasting arguments from chat, and he doesn't actually have a good understanding of
like that to describe it. They would have a significant taxonomical distinction to refer to, a different molecular composition, but we refer to it as water. You might say it's trans water. A bit of a difference, but fundamentally very similar.
Okay.
If the philosophy dude, now he might just be tired because of how absurd all of these logic trees are, but couldn't the guy actually say, so wait, so you're telling me that like heavy water and normal water are actually factually different things? Because going by this weird fucking road that we just followed with Vaush is actually making the argument that trans women aren't women, that heavy water isn't water, that these are like factually, there is a fact of the matter to be understood here that's not arbitrary, but that is like fact-based in the world that is different from like one or the other, right? Like, but...
So you're resisting me on the claim that water is H2O. Let me try a different one.
I'm resisting you on definitional prescriptivism. I think that we have...
Wait, how can you resist on definitional prescriptivism? I thought you said all definitions were prescriptive. Wait, what does that even mean, to resist on definitional prescriptivism? I'm wondering, and again, I fully admit I might be the one that's like behind here and I just don't understand, but I'm curious, like, what is a philosophy dude thinking that Vaush is intending with anything he ever fucking says ever? Like...
I'm not prescribing any definitions. I'm just saying water is H2O, true or false. And it sounds like you're reluctant to say true.
No, I agree. I agree that water, and we refer to H2O as water colloquially. Yeah, of course. I'm familiar with that.
So water is H2O.
Yeah.
And it was H2O long before humans came along.
But water wasn't a concept back then.
I know, but nevertheless, water was there. Actually, water's never been a concept. Water's always been a molecule.
Well,
we have a concept of water, but the concept is not itself.
Now, if you wanted to technically go, I think, like very anal, like theory of science or philosophy of science, to say that water was always a molecule, that statement is actually probably not defensible because a molecule is like a contemporary arrangement of how we understand. But that gets into weird shit. But he would probably agree, I would imagine. He's probably just trying to get Vaush to like get to some point where they can have an actual conversation because right now they can't.
Water.
But our understanding of it and the differentiations that we make when we distinguish it from things like heavy water, these are socially constructed. After all,
Yeah, someone in YouTube chat said it. Technically, a molecule would be a model, right? We can argue about the existence of a model is a little bit different than the existence of a thing. But like we can understand what he's getting at. There probably is something, some arrangement of matter that we call water that's been here regardless of human concept or not, right? I think most people would agree with that.
Said it's still fundamentally water, but we're talking about a different molecular shape. Now, that's because you've arbitrarily branched these two within a category because there's a relationship between them. But that's a social phenomenon. Mm-hmm. The universe doesn't give a shit whether you refer to heavy water as water or some other, molecule.
Well, but that's
entirely.
This guy's
it's
argument.
Utterly indifferent to your perception of reality. But we still choose to prescribe. And that, I think, a lot of people, when it comes down to definitional games, they start doing this, well, these things are these things. And, we have a lot of power over that. Some animals are different species, but we distinguish what makes something a different species. The taxonomy for what refers to species differentiation, we made that up. We didn't. We invented it. We didn't discover it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the philosopher guy can't understand what's happening here. They're lost on the reference versus the thing, because the philosopher guy should agree. Yes, I agree that we've created the reference, so like water or H2O or molecule, these things, but the thing was always there. That's the thing that Vaush is failing to understand right now, and the philosopher guy doesn't seem to understand. To be fair, this conversation is really confusing. I can pause and review from the outside, so it's easier for me to see what's going on. It's always going to be the case. But that's where the trouble is right now. He gets into that? Okay, maybe he'll figure it out.
I agree with you that species are, the distinction between species is less clear than distinctions we would find in physics and chemistry. So that's why, no surprise, I'm focusing on physics and chemistry. How do we feel about the claim that gold is atomic number 79? Would you agree with that, or are you skeptical of that too?
I think that's how we refer to it as, sure. I'll take your word for it. I don't
That
have the periodic table memorized.
Yeah. Well, I'm benefiting from the fact that this is a bit of a commonly used philosophical example, so that's really why I know that. But yeah, gold, that term in English refers to a certain element that has 79 protons. It's atomic number 79. So gold has been around for a long time.
Keep in mind that, like, if Vaush had read that fucking dude's paper before doing this argument, we know exactly what this guy is about to talk about, right? Because in his paper, he mentions this idea of how there can be a category of something that's like golden, but that doesn't necessarily make it gold. He's arguing this the vague concept thing that he's already talked about in his paper here, but Vaush is unfamiliar with it, but here we go.
Time. Long before the word gold came on the scene. Gold predates the word gold. So anyway, this is just supposed to be an example of a definition that's true, and we went down a rabbit hole a little bit.
What do you mean by true? If we had taken another definition, if we had created another definition to say gold, and the term gold referred to a collection of elements, so let's say gold and lead, and the term gold was something people used to refer to both, that definition would be as true as the one we use today for gold. They would have simply made the choice to include two different elements in their definition, just as you've included standard water and the isotope of heavy water in the definition of water. It's just a definitional game. As long as they distinguish between the two subcategories of gold and iron with their respective atomic weights, the singular term, like how we have terms for metals, we have terms for the gases, the inert gases. Help me out, you know more than me. The
noble gases.
The noble gases.
The noble gases. Yes, we invented those distinctions. We
invented the terms.
We invented the terms, yeah, because like noble gases like have certain properties that exist in the world. There's a reason why we recognize them as being what they are, and it's not just because we like randomly wanted to have them be those things. You can argue that we draw borders randomly, but like they're drawn around facts of the matter. Like there's like a factual thing that we're drawing borders around.
The terms,
yes.
Because the distinctions are only meaningful when we notice them. The universe doesn't care whether or not we think there's something meaningful or significant about noble gases versus the other stuff. We just saw those differences and we're like, oh.
There is a difference though, right?
So we saw the differences. The differences were there.
Yes.
The differences are real.
The fact of the
and
matter
then we
was
came
observed.
along and decided, you know what, we're going to name these differences. We're going to assign some names to these different elements.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm trying to remember why we started down this rabbit hole. I didn't get very far through the things you said. The first thing I brought up was you had said all these views are incoherent, but then we kind of clarified that what you meant was any of the popular views of women that have been proposed are vague and difficult to articulate. And then I guess I was just trying to point out that a definition might exist and be true even if it hasn't been articulated. Like rewind before humans came on the scene, I would have thought water was H2O even before anyone was around to...
Okay, hold on, fuck you. The periodic table is so universal that it is the thing most often cited that aliens would understand it. I made that argument on stream a long time ago and all of you motherfuckers disagreed with me. Rem might have even come on to debate with me about it. Fuck all of you. I always said that two things that aliens would be able to probably communicate with humans would be math, like basic mathematical truths, and the periodic table of elements. And everybody wanted to fight with me on that. So fuck you motherfuckers, okay? Who are you talking to? I'm talking to Affidina or whatever the fucking DGG chat.
Name water or to realize its chemical essence. So I was just disagreeing with that point about how definitions work. I don't think definitions properly understood are linguistic entities. I think there are facts out there in the world.
There are facts, but wait, I have to challenge that. There are facts in the world, but definitions are categorically linguistic. We create them because we identify differences in things that we see in the world. The facts of the world, there are many, the spectrum of light that we consider to be blue contains within it an infinite range of potential blue values, but we don't have an infinite number of names to describe them. There may be a set number of facts in the world, but the categories we use to separate those facts are entirely up to us and our perceptions. So another example of this would be like in terms of gender prescription. There are cultures historically that have had third genders for a long time. Often the third gender is a biologically
not
male
really true.
A gender class that adopts roles that are much more similar to the biologically female.
Or actually, wait,
There
that
are
is kind of true.
non-human animals that do this as well. You know, it's not unique to us. And in that case, there's a separate category, and maybe clearly they felt that the categorical difference between these more feminized biological males and the regular biological males was something worth distinguishing in a gender-oriented taxonomical sense. But that's not any more right or wrong than what we do. They just see different meaningful differences and apply different terms. So you can't make these objective arguments about terms. Terms may refer to the facts of the world, but we draw the borders. The land on Earth might be, objective, but the borders of the nations that we build over them, those we rule on paper. We just have to be, considerate of human need when we're describing what here we actually want to build.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh, there's a lot I disagree with in there, but I'm trying to be selective or efficient with our time here. Maybe let me just ask you this. It sounded like in your response to me, you raised some objections to the biological view that I expressed, that women are adult human females. And you brought up, you said, we haven't always known about chromosomes. Again, I don't think that chromosomes figure into the definition of biological sex. You also mentioned intersex people. So it sounded like you were trying to argue against the reality of males and females. But then at other times, you say, there are other cultures that have a third gender that are biologically male. And I think you might agree that there are animals that are biologically male and biologically female. So I guess just let me get clear on your view. Do you think that there are males and females,
of course,
out there in the world?
I believe it's bimodal. There are males and females, and most people will fall pretty solidly on either end of the spectrum. But I do feel there are a significant number of people who are closer to the middle in terms of intersex.
Okay, to be clear, sex is not bimodal. There are traits that can be bimodal, and that, like, for instance, not all men are 5'10" and not all women are 5'4", but like the differentiation in like traits will be bimodal. We tend to have like a this curve and then like a this curve, and there's a lot of overlap. But sex is generally seen as two distinctly different things, right? Possessing two different, or like one of each of the gametes or whatever, either the male spermy dude or the female eggy dude.
Sex expression.
Oh, well, if you also think that there are adults in humans, then what exactly is wrong with the definition that women are adult human females? You believe in adults, you believe in humans, and you believe in females. Is it just you think there are counterexamples to this definition? Is that the problem?
My belief in the value of a definition, it should be said first, is not determined by its consistency. There are consistent definitions that are still morally wrong. For example, the Nazis grouped humans into taxonomical categories, which at times were consistent, usually because they were very blunt and lacking in nuance. They were just monstrous and unnecessary.
So now Vaush has stepped into a second argument that he's making that has to do with whether or not there's like an immorality of a definition that this guy also is, I think, a decent enough knockdown for. But, what are you going to do?
They were suitable to the Nazis in a political sense because they allowed for the dehumanization of large groups of people. But I don't think we review them in retrospect based on their consistency. Like, they say any of the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel are subhuman. That's easy to find out with a 23andMe. Of course not. So I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm only saying that my concern here, first and foremost, is not one of consistency. Even if the biological model was perfectly consistent, I would oppose it. But it's not. Because chromosomal abnormalities are all it takes to throw this up for a loop.
Now we're going back to the argument to vagueness, which was also addressed in the paper.
When you transition, you do change your sex to an extent. Not entirely, but certainly there are categories of sex that are altered. When you have chromosomes of a certain designation, it determines the hormone washes that you receive, both during puberty and in the womb, and that determines the shape your body takes, the genitalia you form, the ways in which your body develop. But if you have a trans woman who took puberty blockers before she hit puberty, then transitioned medically, you have a person who is, let's say a doctor would not call them a biological male. in terms of the risk of breast cancer, prostate cancer, a wide variety of bone and heart-related conditions. This is not a person who'd be going to the doctor and saying, yep, I'm a male, and the doctor would go, yep, your problems are male problems. It wouldn't. So if that's the case, you know, where does that line fall? What about people who have the XXY chromosomal abnormality, or people whose Y chromosome doesn't
That part is kind of
sufficiently
true.
inhibit
You can
the
kind of
development
change
the
aspects of your
X
sex
chromosomal
depending
hormones
on...
they receive. These categories are not called for, and that's why traditionally doctors have just cut off the aberrant genitalia of intersex people, or try to force people into roles that best made them fit a binary. It just doesn't always work.
Okay. Yes. I have watched some of your videos, and I've heard your views on biological sex, and I think it's a commonly held view.
I love
about
sex.
What biological sex consists in. I think it is based on a misunderstanding. I don't think that biological sex is defined in terms of chromosomes or genitals or hormone levels. And you can see that by just considering the full range of the plant and animal kingdom and how the sexes are realized across the plant and animal kingdom. And you'll see that there's no facts about genitals figure into the definition, nothing about hormones, nothing about chromosomes. So we can talk about that a little more if you'd like, and try to get clear on what biological sex really is. But I just wanted to quickly point out that in my opening statement, what I argued was on all these proposals, it turns out that not all trans women are women. On every proposal, it is false that all trans women are women. So
I disagree.
I'm not really in a position that I need to defend the biological view. If you want to beat up on it and criticize it and reject it, okay. All I said was, if this is what woman means, then not all trans
is this
women
guy
are women.
Canadian?
I guess we agree on that. But I thought it would have been more pressing, given your views, to try to defend the charges that all those other proposals also entail, that not all trans women are women. And as far as I can tell, you haven't tried to do that yet.
Well, the prescriptive view
would you like to talk about biological sex, or should we move on to something a little more relevant?
Well, the biological sex thing, if it's something you feel the need to defend, we can. I assume this is you're the belief, of course, that a woman is defined by biology?
If you are asking me, what does the word ordinarily mean?
Hold on, sorry. Game time. Oh, I thought it just glitched and I didn't get the kill. Sorry. We're back.
Then I think those trans-inclusive philosophers that I quoted are correct. That is what the word ordinarily means. I think
I'm not
the
asking you what it
dictionary...
ordinarily means. What do you think it means? What does it mean to be a woman?
What does it mean to be a woman? Well, if you were to ask me, what does it mean to be a computer or a television, or I'm just pointing at things in the room, I would take that question to be asking, what do those words ordinarily mean? I don't have my own private language. I communicate using a public language that we all share. And so if you ask me what a word means, and I didn't know, I might check the dictionary to see what this word ordinarily means.
Is entirely informed by tradition. You are aware, of course, of the fact that the majority of Americans today believe in accepting the identity of trans people by a slim margin. In 20 years, my view will be more popular than yours. Will you switch over then? Are you going to defer entirely to what you see in the dictionary?
Then it would no longer be true that that's what the word ordinarily means.
So, okay, well then, sure, then that's fine by me. If we're here to make prescriptions, then sure. My problem.
I haven't made any prescriptions.
You defer to the prescriptions of others. All definitions are fought for, from the definition of soil in the books of geologists to the definition of skyscraper in the book of civil engineers. Everything is fought for, and I will fight for the definition, the prescriptive view,
so noble,
that
Vaush.
Trans women are women, because there is harm and inconsistency present in other definitions.
Okay, can you tell me what the definition is that you defend?
Sure. I think that woman, like the concept of...
I think Vaush should have held him here to give a definition of woman. If you're attacking Vaush's, so in his paper, and he has one too, which is strange why he wouldn't posit it. He has a traditionalist view, or he calls it the traditionalist view of gender. I don't know why he didn't put that definition forward, unless maybe he just wanted to argue against this idea that he has a personal definition, because he's referring to that concept of private language, that nobody can utter something that means something only to them. There's no such thing as a private language. They're just meaningless utterances, but...
Woman is an arbitrary and vague collection of aesthetics, values, roles.
He has to stop saying arbitrary. Arbitrary implies a randomness or a lack of purposefulness in selecting things. When we create a category, it is by definition not arbitrary. Well, unless it is by definition arbitrary, like using a random number generator or something, right? Like
a bunch of social constructions that are typically tied to sex that just sort of float in the public conscious. They vary depending on where you are. What a woman is expected to be in the Bible Belt South is very different from what they're expected to be in like Seattle or whatever.
Hold on a second. So when you said in the Bible Belt South, there's something that a woman is expected to be. Can you tell me who it is that's expected to be this way? What does woman mean in that sentence?
Well, whoever they would consider to be a woman, which overwhelmingly would be biologically female people.
Whoever they would consider to be a woman. And what did woman mean there when you said, like, well, let's check who they would consider to be a woman.
I already said biologically female. You don't need to prompt it. I already said it.
Vaush is mad because he realizes he just fucked himself.
Adult human females. You mean?
Well, we are talking about adult humans, I assume.
Okay, so you're saying what woman means is it's this collection of aesthetics, rules, and perspectives that are associated with women. And by women, you mean adult human females.
Yes.
So this is another, the performativity, when he talks about Butler's definition of gender, I think, in this paper. It's actually so sad that Vaush has managed to, so I thought that the academic definitions given of the sex-gender distinction that, is his name Thompson, that he addresses in this paper are actually really shit. Now, I don't know if most professional philosophers just suck, or if when it comes to gender, people turn their brains off, but they seem like pretty easy to not, like, I feel like I could write in response to how dog shit a lot of these things are. And his argumentation, his counter-argumentation, seems like pretty easy to follow, which I think is probably bad, because if I can follow it, then it seems like your definition is really shit. But it's interesting that, Vaush has managed to hop around to like almost every single shit academic definition of the sex gender divide that this guy is like given in his paper. It truly is like a cheat sheet for how this debate was going to go. If Vaush would have just read this one paper, he could have done this in 30 minutes off stream.
Typically, the role of woman in a social construct is one which is tied to sex, but that doesn't mean that it's prescriptively tied to sex. Or to give another example, you're going to see types of music preferences which are heavily associated with people's racial groups or nationalities. But that doesn't mean that there's an inherent prescriptive association there, only that circumstantially these arbitrary associations came to be.
No one, I don't even know what he's saying. He just really, eventually, it was funny for a little bit, but I think I'm going to start getting triggered. He manages to word vomit out like so much of nothing. Like no one is arguing that like different people can't have different preferences. Now he's digging into this biological essentialist argument almost that Thompson argues against here. The idea like, well, just because you are a woman doesn't necessarily mean that you have to believe in a certain set of things or be a certain set of actions or aesthetics. But just because there are those certain set of actions or aesthetics doesn't mean that there aren't women as well. Or even if we wanted to eliminate those like compulsory things related to gender, doesn't mean that we're creating a sex gender distinction either. Like none of these things logically follow. He's just saying so much random shit.
Or to put it another way, the type of music that you're going to hear in Thailand hit like #1 charts is pretty different to what you're going to hear like #1 charting over here in America. But that doesn't mean that people over there are biologically inclined to that music as opposed to ours. It's due to proximate bias. People in that area of the world listen to that music because that's the music they have.
Not Thompson,
because that's the music they have. They pass it down to other people who are around who happen to be people in that part of the world. And likewise, you know, you have an example here of woman, a sort of broad definition, that we do prescribe to biological females. But that's precisely my argument. See, I don't know if the philosopher guy just doesn't want to tackle this because of how dog shit this concept is that Vaush keeps reintroducing. This idea that like you're prescribing a definition. All definitions are prescriptions. Everything is a prescription. Every time I open my mouth, it's a prescription. Maybe he just doesn't want to touch that because it's such a fucking weird can of worms to get into. Or I don't know. I'm kind of curious what his thoughts are on that. A libertarian here in the classical sense. I don't believe it's right to impart roles and responsibilities onto a person based on their birth genitalia. It's very weird to me. I'm not looking for an end to sex.
Like he's not even saying that. And then again, Vaush is giving one of the arguments that are knocked down in this paper that Vaush is giving this argument. If adult female humans are adult female humans, then biological determinism is true with respect to them, and adult human females' social, psychological, behavior traits are inevitable, being determined by her body. Like, this is just, I'm sorry, I'll stop revisiting it, but okay, I'm glad that this came up, though. I wanted to read the paper in advance to show you that, like, even if you're willing to do, like, at the tiniest amount, a modicum of preparation, just a little bit of preparation, it usually will pay off for conversations. Vaush reading this paper would have improved his conversation with this guy a millionfold, instead of walking into arguments over and over and over and over again. he's not even maintaining one consistent train of thought. He's got like 6 different lines running right now that all happen to be different academic arguments that this guy's already given knockdown arguments for in his paper. So at the very least, if Vaush was familiar with the arguments or the guy's knockdowns, he could be ready to respond better. But Jesus Christ.
Logical sex is always going to be a category we have to deal with, for the foreseeable future at least. What I'm against is the idea that some arbitrary hormone washes you received while in the womb should decide a massive category of expectations and behaviors that are assigned to you afterwards. And that's what I'm talking about prescriptively. I don't think we should be saddled with that. True identities should be self-ascribed, which in this case I believe they are.
So this sounds like a view that was expressed in one of the quotations I provided in my slides. It sounds like you're giving voice to a social role view, according to which to be a woman is to, as you said in that quotation, want to internally and externally adhere to a certain set of aesthetic
Fucking destroyed, Pog, owned.
rules, perspectives, etc. That's what it is to be a woman. To want to or to actually occupy a certain social role or a certain social position, or
it's
live up to
associated with women. I don't think it makes you a woman, though.
Oh, but I had asked you what your definition of woman is. What makes someone a woman? I thought you had answered that, but now we're going to get a different answer.
These go into what woman is, the concept of woman.
No,
a woman, in my prescriptive view, is simply a person who prefers to be associated with that broad range of archetypes.
Any person who prefers to be associated, right? Yeah, that's the social role view. So what do you make of my argument that on that definition, not all trans women will be women?
No, they want to be associated with that broad range of archetypes, but that doesn't...
But what if they don't want to be associated with that broad range of archetypes? What if you have a tomboy trans woman? What of her then? Is she not a trans woman? Why? I wish the philosopher guy would ask that.
Mean that their identity is dependent on fulfilling those roles. There are cisgender
not all trans women will want to be associated with those aesthetics and rules and perspectives or whatever.
But they are nonetheless by choosing to refer to themselves as women.
No. Sorry.
When we
but
think
if you
of
ask
woman,
them, do you want to adhere to these expectations and roles and so on? I would have thought it's totally possible and probably actual for some trans women to say no thanks.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, some women say no thanks, right? Some cis women. So then won't it follow then on this view that you're expressing that not all trans women are women?
No, because they still subscribe to the archetype. The archetype merely contains the collection of social values that we associate with women. There are cis and trans women who, for example, want to be women, but fervently reject elements of what women are expected to be. But this doesn't make them any less of women. I'm only saying they've still chosen to associate themselves with that archetype, much as I choose to associate myself with the archetype of being a man, and there are roles associated with being a man that I'm not interested in adopting or fulfilling.
Okay, so there's this archetypal woman. And I guess if I'd asked you what this archetypal woman is, you would say, wears a dress and wears pink.
No, it's just
what would you say?
It's a collection of categories. I don't think there could be one archetypal woman.
He's not going to give any answer.
There are so many.
I was worried it was going to be really viciously stereotypical.
No, there can't be one woman because these concepts are arbitrary and stupid. For example,
when you say trans women subscribe to the archetype, what is the archetype?
What does that mean?
The
what is the
archetype
archetype?
is defined by its name, and all we tie.
No, what do you mean? You can't define. That's not how definitions work. What is the definition of flabbergasted? I mean, it is to be flabbergasted. It's defined by the name. No, that's not what that means. What is it? That's not a definition.
To it. To give you an example, a woman, a stereotypical woman, can be a very maternal, motherly, kind, gentle person, but they can also be like a Jersey Shore, like bratty, mall-hopping, selfish type. Now, those are two archetypes of woman and femininity that are completely contradictory. You can't simultaneously be...
No, you can't. Dude, I don't even... Oh, fuck. It's getting boring. Hold on. I'm going to order food. This is irritating now. There must be something in common, or there must be some way then that you're appealing to something. If you're telling me that you're giving me two entirely contradictory definitions of things, contradictory, not just different, contradictory, but they're both women, then you're appealing this, because it's funny because, again, Vaush is making an argument. He's actually giving this guy's argument in this paper. Vaush is making an incredibly strong argument for sex being real by saying, even though these two people have totally different gender norms on the outside, they're both still women. Well, that's interesting that you think so, Vaush. What's making them women? This is similar to the argument that this guy is given I think it's a Betcher argument. We can imagine a world where the cultural roles normally assigned on the basis of sex are inverted. Females dress like men, males dress like women. Stereotypical traits and behaviors are assigned to each group. Here, it isn't clear how to apply the terms man and woman. Does physical sex or cultural role determine category membership? But then he gives the knockdown argument to this, basically saying that, like, yeah, you would say that they're men wearing dresses and women that are not wearing dresses. But, like, you're providing a stronger argument that these categories exist by virtue of saying men wearing dresses. You're implying there's something else that's like differentiating them here. Like this social role thing that Vaush is bringing up is like, it's not a good argument.
Calm, caring, and motherly, while also being, selfish, bitchy, and like, money grubbing. Those don't fit, but nonetheless, they're both considered archetypes of femininity. So it's about associating yourself with the collection of categories rather than representing the singular archetype of those categories.
Do you have a better argument? I would say that, like, women and male, or female and male, or woman and man, I guess. I don't know. I would be interested in talking to this guy about the argument. There are things that I've thought about, but I can't really test them because conservatives are brain dead. So I don't really have anybody to argue against when I'm thinking of things like gender, and progressives are also brain dead. So I don't have anything to argue against when I'm talking about gender or sex. For sex, I think sex is fairly easy to define. We have a binary understanding of the different, like, gametes related to sexual reproduction. Things that have sperm, things that have eggs, right? And then there's, like, usually a set of primary and secondary sexual characteristics that go along with these two individual gametes, right? I think it's generally how we view things. And I think for the most part, biologically, I think that works pretty well. I feel like gender is something a bit different because the way that we observe with it, the way that we interact with it seems to be, there are ways that our gender roles map onto our sex, but they can also be totally disassociated. And I don't think people would, like, if I were to give you, like, Blair White, for instance, in society, like, it would be really, really, really hard to call Blair White a man. It would be hard for her to want to go into the male bathroom. It'd be hard for her to want to act like a man in terms of what our social expectations are for how men and women act. It would just be very difficult. So it feels like gender, maybe borrowing a little bit from Judith Butler, right? That gender is like a sort of performance that we have. Gender isn't really sex. Now, a lot of the ways that we perform gender are kind of like informed by our sex, but not necessarily. That's kind of how I view the difference between, like, gender and sex. But gender is kind of like a performance that we have, although oftentimes it's very tied into what our sex is. But this is all separate even from trans issues. Have you talked with any professors about this? No, I haven't, which is why I think it'd be interesting to talk to this guy. I think that a gender-sex distinction, I don't even think is necessarily needed to talk about trans people. That's a whole other thing, though. Actually, I would go a step farther, and I would argue gender-sex distinctions have nothing to do with trans people. I think you can have trans people with gender and sex distinctions, and I think you can have trans people without gender-sex distinctions. But that's a different argument. But I don't have any conservative people to talk with about this because most of them are fucking brain dead as soon as you even approach these types of topics. But Destiny, clearly how people feel plays some role. No, say that someone looks like a man, talks like a man, dresses like a man, but has a uterus and says they're a woman. Is it a woman? Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It feels like in that case, socially, like there's something going on where our determination of who is a man and a woman, it feels like there's a difference between the biological fact of the matter versus the gender roles. That's why I'm saying it seems like there's a different thing going on here. Like, if I were to give you a room filled with femboys or, like, ultra fucking feminine, like, cross-dressers, like, not like drag people, but like people that are very convincingly men dressed as women, and I was like, do you feel like you're in a room full of men or women? Like, you might want to say man, but you have no way of knowing unless you're going to go dick check everybody, which people don't do. We often make determinations of gender 99% of the time, or in chat's case, 100% of the time, without ever seeing somebody else's set of genitals, right? So it feels like there's, like, a distinction here. There's something different going on here. Yeah, I would be interested in, I don't know. Destiny, do you not agree that the definition of woman is variable with culture and time? The definition of the gender of woman, the performance of that sex or the performance of that gender, I think has changed throughout history culturally, but of the sex, no, I don't think so. Sorry, we haven't finished this yet, so maybe Vaush can turn this around, but somebody linked this. This was funny. Vaush's debate with the philosophy PhD. Vaush did a great job handling the pale sophistry of that guy. For a sociology major, he has a solid philosophical foundation. If he ever gets around to reading some of the spicier thinkers, he'll be a fucking force of nature in this kind of debate. Speaking as someone who has read more philosophy than is probably good for me, I just want to give everyone blanket permission to immediately cut through whatever Gordian knots, pendants, and sophists put to you. Make them clearly define their jargon, make them give examples, make them justify their criteria in simpler terms. In this case, Vaush would have been well within his rights to insist on a clear definition of woman at the very beginning of the discussion, to completely reject the chemistry metaphors, especially after he conjured up with the brilliant heavy water argument, and to make the doctor actually sum up his argument in a couple of sentences rather than gesture to a fucking PowerPoint presentation. Philosophy isn't supposed to be like this, by the way, but unfortunately the discipline is split between pedants who worship Aristotle and Kant and get trapped in some analytic cul-de-sac because of political conservatism and temperamental timidity or something, and creative thinkers who actually read and challenge the full pantheon of philosophical thought from ontology to political economy and can at least try to make these ideas accessible to everyone and not boring. Is this real? Thinking about it, he would demolish anyone 3 times over if he even just gave us, if even just one of us gave him 3 months worth of coaching in the history of Western philosophy. Like, his biggest weakness in these arguments is his lack of familiarity, making him sound like an arrogant amateur to academics, but he would easily run circles around anyone, from Kirk to today's dumbass to even pseudo-academic dipshits like alt history. Their logic is childishly misinterpreted, and their philosophy bases are so ahistorical they're almost made up. Like, super simple. Define all the branches, then go through Anaximander, Heraclides, Gorgias, Plato, Aristotle, Aquinas? I think it's Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas, right? Scotus, Locke, Descartes, Spinoza, Hume, Kant, Hegel, Mill, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Russell, Wittgenstein, Popper, Sartre? I don't remember. And he's set. Since I'm assuming he already knows most of the political and later thinkers, he cited Foucault before, just to name one basic threat and a few possible ones. Is this all psyops? I can't tell if these are psyops posts or not. I truly don't know, but okay, sorry, anyway.
So you had said a woman is anyone who subscribes to the archetype of woman. And then when I said, what is this archetype? You said it is defined by the name woman, I guess.
The collection of all we associate with it, yeah. And we associate many things with woman, very few of which I think have to do with biology. There's a whole lot of social crap on top that you kind of layer on there.
There was another quotation I didn't include where you had said something like this. And a way to avoid the circularity worry with a self-ID version of a self-ID definition of woman is to say that woman is anyone who identifies as a woman and then mention the word. Don't use the word, just mention the word. Anyone who is willing to say things like, I am a woman. Anyone who's willing to attribute that word to themselves. So then you avoid the circularity worry. But as I said,
I zooped around it.
Okay. Well, as I said in my opening statement, if this definition isn't circular, then whatever the definition means, it's going to exclude some trans women. And here's how it's going to work in this case. This definition you just provided is going to make it so that being a woman is an English-speaking affair. So there are no women outside of the English-speaking world. You would have to be familiar with the word woman, attribute it to yourself. And so an implication is there are no non-English speaking women, and there were no women before English came along. I find those to be pretty implausible implications.
I think that the category of woman didn't really exist in the form that it does as much as 6 months ago, let alone throughout all of human history. You know, the archetype I'm referring to, this broad collection of tropes and categories that I refer to as like the woman that women associate themselves with, you're right. It may not exist to people who don't speak English, but by the time they learn, there will be a different one. And it's different in every culture, in every neighborhood, in every society, at every point in time. It will constantly shift. It's kind of true. I don't think there's an objective definition here.
This is true, but the problem is that Vaush is missing the point the other guy's making. The guy is making the point that if this is true, that the definition of woman is constantly shifting in all of these things, and that's what we want to believe that, then not all trans women are women. Because now you're trying to say that there is some like fact of the matter of what is a woman. But you have to acknowledge that if you're going to define it in any way, not everybody is going to like meet your threshold for what a woman is, most likely.
But if you're looking for some truly exclusionary stuff, I would agree that any person who was raised by wolves in the forest and had never come into contact with human society could not be described as having a gender. I think their gender would have to be some kind of a recursive, it would have to be like a product of their engagement with social roles and expectations that they would have to develop, even if you could easily identify their sex.
You can also attack this on, I hate to say like inductive grounds maybe, that like, okay, sure, Vaush, do you think that if you say the definition changes every 6 months, if I show you a woman from 6 months ago, will you be able to identify her as a woman? What about from 6 years ago? What about from 60 years ago? What about from 60,000 years ago? Because that would seem to undermine his argument that like, oh yeah, like it changes like every few months. Does it though? Does it really? Would you truly not be able to identify a woman from even, 60,000 years ago? You probably would be able to. So this argument probably isn't the best one. Probably doesn't seem like a great argument.
But that's the only case I think where a human has no contact with gender roles, because they're pretty ubiquitous all over the world.
We've got to jump into the Q&A shortly, so
oh
maybe
goodness, time flies when we have fun. Sorry.
Okay, well, let me just respond quickly to a couple of things you said. You said it seemed like you were willing to concede that the category of woman didn't exist 6 months ago, you said?
Not this category.
Yeah, so then it sounds like you agree with me that your view does entail there are no women outside of English-speaking contexts. And in fact, you might even agree there were no women 8 months ago. So these are surprising implications, to say the least.
With respect, wait, if I may, with respect, not to get into linguistic traps here, because the concept changes, that doesn't mean that there weren't equivalents across time, culture, and society.
Well, if there are equivalents, then what do you mean when you say the concept changes? Then it feels like there's not much of a change. Now it feels like you're playing word games. What do you mean by the concept changes? Or if anything, if the philosophy guy is quick here, if the concept is changing, but there's still equivalents throughout all of time and history, now it sounds like you're making the strongest argument ever for there to be a more rigid definition of woman. That there is some underlying fact of the matter about what is a woman. And even though overarching concepts might change, there is going to be some underlying fact of the matter that has persisted. So now you're making an even stronger argument for the concept of woman.
German have a concept of Frau, the Spanish have Mujer, or whatever the fuck the Spanish term for woman is, Yeah. I don't literally mean the concept, the social collection.
The word.
Popped into existence here. But you're right, because depending on what word you use to refer to women, whatever word you have for that, it's going to be a different collection of roles.
Who would you be referring to there? You said whatever word you use to refer to women. Who would you be referring to there?
There, yes. Who are you referring to? That's the whole issue. That's the meat of the... Who are you referring to? Because it seems like you're referring to something similar the entire time. That's the issue, right?
Well, anyone.
No.
Anyone?
Anyone? Hold on, it can't be anyone. The whole point of a category is to include some things and exclude other things. You can't have by definition, you can't have a category that includes everyone, except for the category called everyone. Why would you say this? What?
No matter what word you use to refer to women as an archetype that will inform to an extent what you imagine women to be. And this is self-evidently true. Go to India. They don't have the word woman for woman, but they have very different expectations of what it means to be a woman over there.
Do you think that there are no women in India? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not been to India, but I personally would be pretty shocked if Indians didn't have an understanding of like male and female. Now, maybe they don't. But
there than we do over here, massively so.
And they have a lot of women there, despite the fact that the word woman doesn't exist.
Yep, Vaush is making his argument. Even though they don't have that concept, you're still saying there are women there, right? That's the issue.
Yeah, I agree.
With respect, I feel like I don't know how you're interpreting what I'm saying here. They don't use the term woman. They have. I don't know what the Indian term for woman is. I'm sure they have.
Some of them do, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure
some of them do speak English. But right. Go on.
When I say
it wouldn't surprise me if there were more English speakers in India than in the United States. Actually, there probably are. But well, let's check actually. How many Indian people speak English? Oh, damn! It's actually way less than I thought. 125 million people. Wait, hold on. There's a thing that I heard a long time ago that must be fake. I thought there were more English-speaking people in China than there were in the United States. But this is saying India is the second largest English-speaking population besides the U.S. Those numbers, whatever I've heard before, must be totally inflated. It's only the elites. Yeah, it's going to typically be people around like major metropolitan areas and shit. Probably not people in rural areas. How many English speakers in China? In China, it's fewer than 10 million people. Damn, that's a fun fact that I've heard repeated a lot that's actually completely wrong. Holy shit. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
The term doesn't exist outside the definition of woman. What I'm saying is that it is a multifaceted gem that changes with time, and we see it from different facets depending on where we are and what we are. What a woman is so different to like a Southern conservative belle than it is to a progressive living in New York City. In fact, there's such different concepts in terms of the social roles involved that they're practically two different genders, honest to God.
But, like, let's ask ourselves, is that actually true? If I were to go to the South and I was from San Francisco, would I have any trouble pointing out who is a woman? Would I actually not be able to do that because they're so different? Would that be the case for almost any country or culture on the planet? I don't know if that's the case. Oh, that woman got fired? The Washington Post fires her. She did get fired. Thank God. Absolutely based. Oh my God. The boomerang is happening, boys. We're coming back. Hopefully we don't go too far back in the other direction.
That's all I'm referring to. So I'm not literally saying that the archetype, the range of concepts popped up into existence 6 months ago and exclusively exists in English. I'm only saying it's so multivariate, so arbitrary, so meaningless that there are a million variants of it right now, and there were a million more yesterday.
Oh God. It's just so much dog shit. It's just so much dog shit. Damn. I wonder what the philosophy guy's thinking. I'm so curious what's going on in his mind right now.
A decent time to jump into the Q&A. I know that you've got another round in the chamber ready to fire.
I love talking with him. Yeah, sorry.
Both of you guys, I know you do, but I do want to jump into these because, folks, I got to tell you.
Vaush was like saved by the bell so hardcore. He's got to feel like so good about himself that he was like clearly has no idea what the fuck is happening in this conversation, but managed to like hold on desperately until the very end. And now he like comes out looking actually way better than he should have. Probably because the other guy is like a little bit nice and he's not like trying to be an ultra debate bro.
I tried to spam the chat and let you know we can't take any more questions. We've gotten a ton of questions and we have a limited time for the Q&A. These are both busy guys. We want to get them out of here at a decent time. So we're going to jump into it right now. Thanks very much. Elusive Viper says, can you identify someone whose favorite color is red without identifying quote unquote red as your favorite color?
Was this a question for me?
Yeah, they hadn't specified in this one.
Can you identify can you repeat the question? Can you identify someone?
Yep, they said, can you identify as someone whose favorite color is red without identifying red as your favorite color?
Can you identify as someone whose favorite color is red without what? Having red as your favorite color?
Without identifying red as your favorite color.
Oh, without identifying. Oh, I think this is supposed to be a counterexample to my claim that there's no feature such that you have it if and only if you identify as having it. And maybe what this person is asking is, isn't this an example? Having the feature of your favorite color is red, or you, as they put it, identify your favorite color as red. Okay, so suppose we're thinking of that feature, having red as a favorite color. Is that going to be necessarily coextensive with identifying as having red as a favorite color? So no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's going to be another example, just like being rich and being funny and being tall or whatever. It is possible for your favorite color to be red and not know that your favorite color is red and not identify as having the favorite color as having a favorite color of, I don't even know how to finish that sentence.
He's stumbling. Uh-oh. Vaush has got him on the ropes.
That could be. Suppose you're just new to colors. You were colorblind from birth, but a surgery was performed and now you're seeing colors for the first time, but it's just color splotches on the wall and you don't know which color is which, but you know that one's your favorite.
Frazzled.
So your favorite color is red, but you don't know that this color is red. You don't identify as having a favorite color as red. So that would be an example to show how those two could come apart. Can I just butt in really quick and say, I meant to start the debate in a more sort of ironic way and say something nice about Vaush, but then we just got straight into the definition stuff. I wanted to say that when I had first gotten this invitation, I mean, I didn't know about this corner of YouTube or Twitch or wherever I am right now. I didn't know about it.
What are
But
fishes
after watching a lot of
used for?
videos in this corner of the internet, I was really heartened and encouraged by the sort of thing that Vaush is engaged in. Debating and exchanging arguments, evaluating arguments, giving objections. Sometimes, a middle-aged person like me worries about kids these days and how they're not really interested in arguments or evidence anymore. So I was just happy to see that there's this community thriving. Again, I don't even really know what Twitch is, but if that's where it is, good for you. And I'm happy you're doing it. And I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, cute.
Wanted to say that before time ran out.
I'll respond when I get a question then.
You got it. This one coming in from Sphincter of Doom. I think this is for you, Vaush. They say intersex people are still one of two sexes because sex is defined in humans as to what gametes are produced, and every human has only produced at most one of two gametes for reproduction.
So yeah, that's just not true. You can look at any biological journal if you want.
Wait, there are humans that have produced both eggs and sperm? I thought that the hardware for doing this was separate. Can you actually produce both? Is there a genetic... Because that would mean you could get pregnant with yourself, which would be fucking based. Oh, you could literally clone yourself. Can you actually produce both separate things? I saw a House episode about it.
Funny thing is that like the definition keeps receding as it keeps getting proven wrong. Like at first it was like genitalia, but that doesn't correspond perfectly to biological sex. And then it was chromosomes, and that doesn't correspond either because there are chromosomal abnormalities that correspond with like intersex. And then it's like gametes, it's like, and they keep running back and running back, running back. Eventually, like people who are super harped in this argument are going to settle on a definition of sex that has absolutely no utility, like their definition of sex is going to be like, okay, here, we finally found something consistent. There are only one of two possible outcomes. Whether or not like the half-life decay of this atom spun left or spun right in the exact moment the cell was fertilized, and that's the one thing that determines sex. And it's like, okay, at this point, like, what are you talking about? Like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, that's just not true. But wow. Like they can believe whatever they want about biological sex.
By Vaush.
Because like at the end of the day, the biological argument on this has been more or less settled. All the major biological journals are talking about the ambiguity of sex and how this has been more or less. Yeah, that's just not true. But like they can believe whatever they want about biological sex. Because like at the end of the day, the biological argument on this has been more or less settled. All the major
It's been settled? Jesus, academic Vaush. You want to cite a single paper there claiming that all these questions related to sex and gender have been settled? Okay, dude.
Biological journals.
Epic Vaush ownership moment. Ownage.
Talking about the ambiguity of sex and how it's bimodal and so on. So I feel like at this point there are people far more qualified than I to make that argument about how much variance there is. And to follow up on that, I enjoyed talking with you very much, Thomas, or Dr. Bogardus, I should say. You see, I'm so used.
You can call me Thomas.
Thomas, I'm so used to talking to YouTubers. It's wonderful to speak with people with higher education, especially ones who take my arguments seriously enough to quote me in their PowerPoint presentations. No, it's been a delight. Thank you for being on here.
Next up from Brenton Langle, a longtime friend of the channel, says H2O is a symbol. Dr. Bogardus, I think that you are confusing the symbol for the real thing it refers to. All symbols and definitions are flawed, as if they weren't, they would be the thing itself and not the symbol.
All right. That wasn't really a question, though.
Correct. You're right. That's true.
So the claim was H2O is a symbol. So
that is true. H2O is a symbol. You have to clarify if you're referring to H2O, the concept, or if you're referring to what H2O it refers to. Are you referring to the reference to the thing itself? That is true. You have to make that distinction.
Speaking verbally, it's hard to make a use-mention distinction. If the person meant, quote, H2O is a symbol. Well, yeah, I agree. You mean like that symbol, H2O. Yeah, that's a symbol. But if you meant H2O, like the thing that's in this bottle, no, that's not a symbol. That's a molecule that we drink.
I just wanted to say, getting to refer to the heavy water, the isotope of H2O as trans water was like the highlight of this for me. That was a lot of fun.
The term H2O and mentioning the term. So we use the term when we say there's H2O in that lake over there. We mention the term when we say H2O features the letter H or something. So I guess I don't disagree with what the person said, as long as the person meant mentioning H2O, it's a symbol. Yeah, I agree. Water has 5 letters. Yeah, with quotation marks. Water has 5 letters. Yes. Water has 5 letters. No, water doesn't have any letters at all. The stuff that we drink doesn't have any letters at all.
It's literally an isotope.
That's a pretty basic distinction, but I think it's
There's
important
like an extra electron
to recognize and appreciate.
Hydrogen.
All right.
You got it. Signature of Doom strikes again. Says heavy water isn't
Neutron,
an extra
whatever.
hydrogen. It's an extra neutron in the hydrogen. It's still H2O.
Yes. Okay, so I think I got that wrong if I said it was an isotope of oxygen that makes it, is it deuterium? Did we say that? So it's an isotope of hydrogen. It's an isotope of hydrogen. So I guess it's 1 proton and 1 neutron. Is that right? Whatever. Still H2O though. Yeah, well, I guess I need to wait until it's appropriate to respond to the biological sex stuff. So maybe I'll get a question about that. I'll just hold tight.
You got it. This one from Sid Dave says, I can answer that question. Let's see. No, there are not, no matter how many surgeries. Let's see. Okay, that's not as... Brenton Langle, there's your question, says H2O is not water in the same sense that the pipe and Rene Magritte's, let me know if I'm saying that wrong, treachery of images is not a pipe. You are falling for the treachery of concepts.
Yeah. Right. So I think they're referring to that painting of a pipe, and then it says this is not a pipe.
I don't know what this means.
Yeah, it's a painting. It's not a pipe. So it's doing the equivalent of mentioning a pipe, but there's no actual pipe there. So I think this is the same as the last sort of statement I got when I was told H2O is a symbol, not a molecule. Yeah, H2O is a symbol. But H2O, the stuff in lakes and rivers, is not a symbol. This is just a difference between word and object. But I can assure you I appreciate that distinction, and I hope we all do.
I'm not looking up anything that's French.
You got it. This one from David Crackle says, if ice can be water, why can't a trans woman be a woman?
Oh, wow. If ice can be water, which it can be, I think it is water because it's H2O, why can't a trans woman be a woman? I assume that question's for me. Well, ice is water because, come to find out, it's the same stuff that liquid water is. It's all the same stuff, just in different phases. It's all H2O. It's the same thing, just in different arrangements. That's why ice
but aren't everything,
is water. It's not liquid water, it's
just
solid water.
Protons, neutrons, and electrons?
So now the question is a trans woman a woman? Well, that would depend on what
muted.
woman
I'm just
means,
saying, like, depending on where you arbitrarily draw the line
whatever
for
woman
association.
means,
arbitrary.
Is it the case that being a trans woman guarantees that you're a woman in that sense? And I think the reason, as I said, this is such a persistent philosophical puzzle is it turns out that on all the views that are sort of being discussed in the literature, the answer is no. It doesn't turn out that all trans women are women. Whatever woman means, it's going to be possible for someone to identify as a woman while being assigned male at birth, but not meet that definition of woman.
I feel like that wasn't a problem with my
You got it. And this one for Vaush. Made by Jim Bob says, if the term woman is a construct, doesn't that mean, quote, trans women are women isn't actually true and is just a construct itself?
Yes, something being a construct and being true aren't mutually exclusive. Most things that we say when we're referring to interpersonal interactions are only true in a constructed sense, but I still think that they're true, you know. Otherwise, I mean, what does it mean for a person to be tall? You know, there's no set definition of what percentage or what, like, how many orders of magnitude above the average height of a given type of person, a given type of area. Like,
tall is a comparison.
Just because something's constructed doesn't mean it's not true. You know, you can say a person's 7 feet tall and be true as hell to that, but finding a concrete definition, a non-constructed definition of tall is not something you're going to be able to do. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with something being socially constructed. I just think we should be aware of how much power we have to rearrange these terms as we see fit. That's not playing God. That's what we have always done. We've always done that forever. It's all we can do. We made language, you know? I just think that we should use it responsibly.
You got it. Singer Doom strikes again. This one for you, Vaush, says, sex is the reproductive condition of an organism. In humans, this is achieved via gametes, and there are only 2 gametes in humans that leads to reproduction. chromosomal aneuploidy, which meaning whether there's a lack of chromosome or an extra chromosome compared to usual, is irrelevant, they say.
Yeah, so keep switching up the definition of what sex is. It was all chromosome years ago. No, again, like the biological community has made its mark on this. The idea that sex is purely binary and not bimodal is just not something taken seriously.
I wish he wouldn't say that without. I think you need to cite at least one author in the field if you're going to say something like that, because you're making a pretty outstanding claim, right? I think the professor's trying really hard to be amenable. He's trying to be friendly. I think he should push him. Like, when you say that it's not taken seriously at all, like, what do you mean by that, Vaush? Like, give me like one paper that you're referencing or something, like. In studies to this effect. So it seems quite silly. Look, again, like even if you could like 100% male female differentiate, amicable?
it wouldn't change any of my
No,
prescriptions.
amicable is what I'm thinking of. Amicable. Not amenable.
Amicable.
Amicable.
You could make it, so flatly and unchangeably biologically male and female with nothing in between, and I would still say what I say. It's not really relevant to my arguments. It's only the fact that you're wrong gives credit to the argument that the biological
Wait.
Amenable.
No,
this is a word too. Fuck you. And yourselves.
Differentiation is inconsistent at best and quite harmful as
worst.
Well. Also, talking about gametes? Like anyone looks at a person's gametes when they're trying to gender a person. Come on. That's always been the silliest argument, right? They start going back before. First it was what genitals are like, you have tits or not, or what your hair looks like, and then it goes further and further in. I'm telling you, it's going to be the half-life, the radioactive decay, that spin that you're going to get, and that'll determine it. We'll just judge we'll decide whether people wear suits or dresses based on that spin.
Made by Jim Bob says, Vaush, can someone with Benjamin Button disease, if you guys, namely like aging backwards, claim an age inconsistent with birth date, but consistent with their apparent biological age?
I don't entirely know what that means, but if this is a question of like being trans age or whatever, keep in mind we're talking about magic here. I mean, you would have a person who's like, 5 years old, but has every imaginable, a trait associated with an 85-year-old or something. I have no idea. I got to tell you, I don't know how the legal system or the philosophical community would handle the existence of such a person. I imagine if they had the knowledge and wisdom and experience of an 80-year-old, even if they were only 5 years old, they would probably be treated as like an 80-year-old because they're like, they look and act like one. What? I don't really know, though. When that happens, okay, you can try to stump me.
Okay.
You got it. This one coming in from Raymond Ryder. Appreciate it.
I think they all hate me. Wait, I've already clicked on this. What is this?
Wow.
We've seen this. Cringe.
Says, Vaush, is it the case that you're engaging in an ameliorative project when you mentioned normative standards for definitions? Isn't this just shifting the subject?
I love to ameliorate the conjugated definition of the superlative. Wait, what was it? I can't tell if that was...
Oh no. When I initially listened to this, I thought this was a Vaush meme. It was a joke dono. But I don't think this is a meme. It's actually the ameliorative inquiry that this guy brought up here relating to or actually it might have been a Vaush meme. I don't know. Was it actually a reference to when the guy talks about this in the paper, or do you think it was a dono meme? I'm not actually sure. I don't know.
If that was a real question, or if it was making fun of how I talk. Which, either way, fair.
I could explain it if you want. That was a sort of question from.
Oh, was that an actual question? Whenever I hear the word ameliorate, I assume people are making fun of me because I use that word the way most people use ums. Wait, James, can you repeat it? I just need to hear it again. I'll take it more seriously.
It's the first time I've ever seen ameliorate, or in this case, ameliorate.
It's a technical term from the literature. I'd be happy to just tell you what it means if you want.
No, I know what it means. I just wasn't listening to the question because I assumed I was listening for like.
I know what it means. I know what it means.
Funny jokes.
That's not what I meant.
In response.
They said Vaush seems to be engaging in an ameliorative project when he mentioned normative standards for definitions. Isn't this shifting the subject?
No, I don't think there are any types of other arguments that you can make when it comes to definitions. I think that at the end of the day, even when you're making descriptive arguments about definitions, you're ultimately making the prescriptive statement that we should adhere to the commonly accepted descriptive statement. I don't think there's any way around
Decrypto.
that.
What?
After all, these are things that we construct. I mean,
These are things that we ameliorate
It's
at
a
the end
little
of the
bit
day,
like
right?
like slavery, right? You know, like people make arguments for and against it, or at least they used to. Well, they still do, but they did more in the past, you know. But if a person's only statement on the subject is slavery exists for X reasons, even though that would be a descriptive argument, if that was all they contributed to the discussion, it would still serve the role of a soft prescriptive argument in favor of the institution. Because when something exists and has the capacity to be changed, an acceptance of and passive defense of the purpose of such a system is considered to be a kind of soft prescriptive argument for it. So, of course, yeah, I'm not saying to solve slavery.
Vaush ameliorated slavery in this debate.
You got it.
Known to
And
happen.
then, Dr. Bogardus, are you saying that in the, like, specifically the word ameliorative is a concept or term from the philosophy of gender?
Ameliorative inquiry is a little phrase that has a very specific meaning in this philosophy of gender literature. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you what it means?
I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, it's sometimes called conceptual engineering. And it's the project I described when I said, like, hey, we've got this biological definition. Even trans-inclusive philosophers agree that's what the word has traditionally, historically meant. But then when I said, like, they don't like that, they don't recommend it, they think that we should use the word woman to express a different concept. And when they're deciding which concept to express with the word woman, they call this, this is ameliorative inquiry. It's a kind of inquiry or attempt at coming up with an analysis that is meant to make the world a better place, to ameliorate injustices. And so there are explicitly moral inputs into the project. They're asking themselves what concept would do the most good in the world. And so I think Vaush is engaged in this sort of project. But
Jesus,
yeah, it is
$99 super chat from Ricardo Franco. Felicia Sonez got fired. Yeah, we saw that. I'll unpause my donuts in a bit.
a technical term from the literature. So the worry is by doing that, by self-consciously using an old word to express a new concept, you're changing the subject. So feminism was about the cause of women, adult human females. But now we're just using the word woman and expressing a new concept, maybe the social role view or the self-ID view or something like that. And so we're not talking about women anymore. We're talking about something else. We've changed the subject. So this is a common worry about the whole conceptual engineering project. We'll just be changing the subject. But I think that's, just for what it's worth, I think that's the least serious worry. I think the more serious worry is all the definitions that have been proposed are trans exclusive.
You got it. And this one from Mr. Saxaki says, Dr. Bogardus, what is your own definition, though, of woman? And by your own logic, it can't be cultural, nor social, nor plastic, nor prescriptive.
Nor plastic. Oh, wow. Nor prescriptive. So again, if you just ask me what is my definition, I would say I don't
that guy said plastic. He probably meant like changing.
Private language. I speak a language shared by a community. And so I think the question is just, what does this word ordinarily mean? What has it meant for the history of feminism up until at least the second wave? What did it mean? And again, trans-inclusive philosophers agree. Ordinarily, historically, traditionally, it's meant adult human female. And I'm just going to use this opportunity to say what it is to be female or what it is to be male. So I agree that if you ask people what is biological sex or what is it to be male or what is it to be female, you'll often get from ordinary people answers in terms of genitals or chromosomes, or maybe hormone levels, or maybe like stereotypes. I don't know if you watched that Matt Walsh documentary, but he asks people, you know, what is it to be a woman? And you get these sorts of definitions in terms of
use my alt.
Genitals, stereotypes, and so on.
Dog shit in this game for it.
But as we briefly discussed during our little back and forth, if you accept that sexual reproduction occurs across the animal and plant kingdom and has been going on for a very long time, longer than Saturn has had rings, it turns out, longer than Polaris, the North Star, has existed. This is a very old sort of strategy that organisms have used to reproduce. You'll realize that genitals are not required. I'm told, I haven't actually checked, but I'm told that a lot of male birds just lack external genitals entirely. There's no particular sort of chromosome structure that you need in order to be male or female. If you just think about how plants do it, it's super complicated. Think about how a platypus does it. It's very, very different from how we do it. Hormone levels aren't
how I do it with
required. You
your
don't
mom?
need any sort of particular
Wait,
hormone level.
how can he defer
understanding
to
is the
public
most basic
definitions when he's using a
organism
hyper
that
nuanced?
reproduces sexually is something called, I think it's pronounced placozoa or something, a placozoa. And it's only a couple thousand cells.
He's going for a
but what makes
hyper-specific
it
definition
the
that
sort of
nobody
organism that has
uses when they
males and
think of
females
woman. But then
is,
he's like, I just defer to the
some of them
common.
produce sperm, some of them produce eggs. That's all that biologists have ever meant by male and female. Now, I agree that ordinary people have been confused about what it means to be male and female, and sometimes they're confused by a sort of chauvinism about our own species.
Wait, how can they be
But if
confused
you
if
just
he's going
think
by the
about
common
what
definition?
biologists mean when they study other organisms, when they say of a flowering
hasn't
plant,
ameliorated
here are the male parts and here are the female parts, they are talking about gametes. And when they say males produce sperm, females produce ova, they mean the same sort of thing that they would mean if they said hearts pump blood, kidneys filter waste. They mean when functioning properly. This may be interfered with due to age, disease, injury, etc. But when functioning properly, that's what happens.
Wait, I have to jump in briefly. How can you defer to traditional definitions when using one that you have to correct the majority of people on? The majority of humans, when asked what it means to be a man or a woman, are not going to give the definition you just provided. Yeah. They're like, the common definition was the one you were referring to earlier, the traditional one, the one you use in light of or in absence of a prescriptive one.
Yeah.
But now you're making a prescriptive statement that maybe 1 in 1,000 humans would even get in the ballpark of. And you can't even defer to scientific definitions either, because the science on this matter, if you go to American Scientific or nature.com, don't agree with you. You're deferring to a definition which is neither scientifically accepted or commonly accepted. So why earlier were you talking about how you just deferred to the commonly accepted one? And you said that you don't want to weigh in on this topic as to what it means because, you know, you just go with what's commonly accepted. That's not the case at all. It's not commonly accepted. What it means to be a woman is literally one of the most hotly discussed topics today. It's hugely contentious.
Not between 99% of people,
though,
right?
Honor means, and you're like, well, I go by the historical definition of honor. But there is no single historical definition of honor, certainly not when used today. It varies massively. It feels like you're trying to assume the legitimacy of the common definition when the one you use is used neither commonly nor specifically by scientists.
Oh my God, Vaush moment!
Okay, I think this is a good point, Vaush, and this really brings up something that we disagree very deeply about. Namely, I think when you use the word definition, what you really mean is like the conception that people have in their minds when they use a word. So if I were to ask someone, what does male mean? They might say XY chromosomes or something like that. And you'd say, that's their definition. But I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the right use of the word definition. I would have thought that you don't look towards their conceptions, the sort of associations they have in their mind when they use a word. And you don't even look at the way people use words, because it's possible for a word to be systematically misused. What you should look at is what the word actually refers to. It might be commonly misused, and people might have mistaken conceptions about what it is. But the true definition,
no
the real
shot,
definition,
this goes across the whole
map. The divine definition, like all the people are wrong. The science. Well, what
we do investigation. Let me give you an example. If you had asked Aristotle what is water, he might have given you his conception, and he would have said something like it's an element, although he would have said it in Greek. Yeah, and it might have been possible. Yeah, it's probably possible that some people have systematically misused the word water if they were unwilling to attribute it to ice. But here's how we figured out what water is. We did some chemistry, and we investigated the lakes and the rivers and the ice, and we found out, oh wow, turns out water's not an element, it's a molecule, it's H2O. We did something similar with biological sex. We noticed this.
Water is not a molecule, it's an element? Maybe he's misspeaking? I don't understand what the point of this is.
Lakes and the rivers and the ice, and we found out, oh wow, turns out water's not an element, it's a molecule, it's H2O. We did something similar with biological sex. We noticed this.
Oh no, wait, he said the opposite. Water's not an element, it's a molecule. Sorry, never mind, just kidding. He ameliorated that statement, just kidding.
Interesting distinction in nature, which I think you yourself acknowledge. There's this phenomenon of sexual reproduction, and we get these two subtypes within a lot of species. Some of them produce sperm, some of them produce ova, at least when functioning properly.
We're talking about what it means to be a woman, though.
Well, I was talking about what biological sex is a moment ago.
Well, I don't understand why Vaush never asks him. Is this really the best alt? Why doesn't Vaush ever ask him, what do you think a woman is? Why doesn't he push him for that? he does later on.
Well,
in the
biological
Q&A?
sex, which you think infers what a woman is.
Which I think implies what a woman is.
I agree that it might imply it. I don't think that implication is necessarily prescriptive determination, though.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was just being a little pedantic there. Inference is something that people do. Implication is something propositions do. Don't worry about it. So I guess you're referring to the fact that I said ordinarily the meaning of the word woman is adult human female. That's the meaning.
No, my issue is that it feels like earlier you were taking a non-prescriptive tone.
But Vaush isn't trying to like understand or like get into like a substance. It feels like Vaush trying to find like he's like one thing that like I can give you an insight into the mind of the debate, bro, because I used to do this a lot. One thing that people will do is if they realize they're completely outclassed in an argument, Vaush has done this before and we've listened to it, is what you do is you try to find like a that's not gold, is it? No shot. Can I just mine gold? No, it's fucking sulfur. Instead of actually trying to engage substantially with the substance of an argument, what people will do is instead they're just trying to like listen very carefully to see if they can pick out a single contradiction, because contradiction is something that you can figure out without truly understanding an argument. You don't have to know what the other person is saying. You can just try to figure out like, you said this, but you also said that, and I think these things are contradictory. And then it's like a way to kind of like score debate points without having any fucking idea what's actually going on in the conversation. And it feels like Vaush is like hyper-fixated now on this guy trying to walk the line between like having a strict definition versus appealing to like popular definition or whatever. And he feels like he's found like blood in the water here.
Where you were just referring to commonly accepted definitions, which only work if you're thinking about like modern history, the West, because when you brought out their...
Hello? The real question is, for as obsessed as we are with Vaush, why do we not have a Vaush text-to-speech?
There are plenty of counterexamples, but then when it comes to like, okay, well, what do I believe? Then you have a hyper-specific definition, and you justify the validity of that definition by saying that it differs not from utility, not from common acceptance, not from popular use, but rather from it being a true definition, which seems like an ontological distinction that you're receiving from God. But I'm afraid I'm not hearing the voices in my head. I don't know what that means.
Jesus.
Yeah, oh boy. So a lot just happened there. So when I described that biological view, I did claim this is what the word ordinarily means. I might have said this is the way it's ordinarily used, and I think that's right. I don't think it's being ordinarily misused. But if I were going to state the claim as precisely as possible, I would say this is what the word ordinarily means. And when I say that, I don't mean to say this is what people ordinarily have in mind when they express the word, because obviously they don't. If you ask ordinary people, what is a woman? They're like, this is something Socrates discovered. You know, you ask people about ordinary terms and they're at a loss to articulate a definition. So when I say this is what the word ordinarily means, I don't mean this is what people have in mind when they use the word. I don't even mean necessarily this is the way the word is ordinarily used, because again, use is at best an imperfect guide.
What do you mean?
What I mean is this is what the word refers to. As it's ordinarily used, I don't think it's misused. This is what the word refers to.
How do you decide what it refers to?
So the same way we did with water. Aristotle was interested in the same sort of stuff that we were interested in. We have different words for it. He thought it was an element. We have discovered through scientific investigation that it's a molecule.
Now, this is really interesting, because when this guy writes a paper about the gender-sex distinction, he seems to want to get at the truth of the matter, the fact of the matter. But in this part of the argument, he's almost appealing to popular consensus, kind of, in terms of what a word refers to. Well, what most people say it refers to is that, is there no underlying fact of the matter here? I think he's a little inconsistent with his arguments here. I don't know if Vaush will be able to call him out on it, but...
And now we know water is H2O. We did that through scientific investigation. We did something similar with biological sex. I mean, Aristotle was aware of this phenomenon, but he was not aware of the gametes involved. We have discovered the scientific essence of biological maleness and biological femaleness through scientific investigation.
I don't like him. I don't like that statement. Like, we
Keep
discovered
life,
that
then.
water is H2O. Like H2O is another model. I feel like he's getting, or I'm not getting a clear distinction between like mention versus like actual mention versus oh god, is it use mention? What was the distinction we talked? Like, are you referring to the name of a thing or the model of a thing or the thing itself?
No such thing as a scientific essence. You can discover facts of the world, but the categories that you apply on top of those facts are something that we have to make decisions about. So you can look at water and determine consistently that, you know, H2O, this number of
Keep
hydrogen
hating your
and
life
oxygen
then,
atoms,
working class
because that's an
Andy.
observable fact of the universe. But as soon as you start to draw lines between things and assign names to those different categories, you are engaging in arbitrary speculation, ones which can only be defined through the utility served by doing so. All of this differentiation that we talk about, the only reason we distinguish between males and females is because we feel it provides us some utility. But when we talk about what we're referring to on a fundamental level, the fact of the matter
This
is...
This is not the case. Could you not also notice it? Could we not conceive of two things, neither of which provides any utility whatsoever to mankind, but we were able to differentiate between them because they've got different physical properties? Isn't that the case? Like, I don't know if I buy this 100%.
And when it comes to sex, there's a ton of variance, not just in our own species, but others. It's not just chromosomes. There are sex characteristics that vary tremendously, even within cis people. And there's no hard line when we look at those things. And I don't think there's a perfect track record of assigning that, like, categorization onto gender either. In fact, I know for a fact there isn't, because there are cultures with third genders. So I don't know what you mean by the true essence here, but I don't feel as though this mode of investigation gives us a better understanding of what it means to be a woman.
So when I said we've discovered the scientific essence of water, what I meant was H2O. We've discovered the essence of gold, which is atomic number 79. This is something we've discovered through chemical investigation. That's all that's necessary to be gold, is to be atomic number 79. Of course, the Greeks were aware of gold. Humans throughout time and place have been aware of gold. They weren't aware of what it is, essentially. Chemistry disclosed that to us. That's what I meant by scientific essence. And I think biologists did something similar with biological sex. There were sort of crude theories about how sexual reproduction is accomplished back in the early days of science. We have since discovered facts about sperm and eggs, and that was a discovery of the scientific essence of biological sex.
Them. Like the fact that we consider isotopes to still be a member of that element. And if an isotope has one extra neutron, we consider that to be a member of the same element, but just a different isotope of it. But if we wanted to, we could have simply said, oh, that's just another element. It's another element with a separate name that has a separate molecular structure. And they would have pointed at it and gone, ah, yeah, well, that's, you know, obviously it's very similar to this other element, but as...
This is true. Everyone is going to shit on Vaush because you're all just like to shit on Vaush, but this is actually true. This guy needs a better... This guy's going to need a better argument for this.
You can see there's an extra neutron, so it can't possibly be the same, you know, as this previous one. But that's what I mean. Like discovering facts of the world is not the same as taxonomy. It's not the same as categorization.
I want to give Dr. Bogardus the last word, just because the question was originally for him, and then we've got one last question for the Q&A before we wrap up.
I kind of forgot what the original question was at this point. I guess I'll just, I don't really want the last word to be about noble gases, but here we go. I guess I just deny that when we're investigating the world, our primary interest when we like decide,
the elements are defined by
what word should we introduce, what distinction should we make, I don't think our primary interest is utility. Rather, we're interested in the truth. Like if it had somehow turned out that not distinguishing between the noble gases had somehow benefited humanity, like if we had learned that, you know, if we just stick with Aristotle's view, or we've just got these 5 elements, humans will be much better off. Scientists wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have cared. They just wanted to know the truth. And they saw these distinctions between the noble gases, and they were like, let's introduce some terms to name what's already there. I think that's what we did in physics and chemistry and in biology.
This one coming in.
What?
Sorry about that. Go ahead. I didn't interrupt.
Nah, that was probably as good a time as any to stop.
We'll jump in with this last question, and then want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description. So if you have not heard enough, if you're like, I want to hear more, I want to learn more about their views, you certainly can by clicking on those links in the description box below. And here is that question. Brandon Hansen asks Vaush, can a person who has male genitalia, XY chromosomes, has absolutely no values / archetypes that has ever been associated with any vague definition of women, but takes the name of woman, are they?
Yes. Though I have to say, I have no idea what a human would have to be in order for their behavior, personality to have no overlap with any of the many incompatible, incoherent, and self-contradictory values we associate with what it means to be a woman. They would have to be remarkable. I'm trying to think of like a male actor. Like even Dwayne the Rock Johnson acts like kindly and charitable sometimes. You know, every time he smiles, well, smiling is considered a feminine characteristic. So yeah, I don't know. You would have to find a
I don't
brick.
even know what
You know,
the fuck.
like a proper brick. But you know, God bless her. You know, transitioning saved her.
You got it. And with that, want to say, folks, we really do appreciate our guests. As I mentioned, you can find their links down below in the description box. That includes if you're listening at the podcast, because we put our guest links in the description box there too. So I want to say one last thank you. It's been a true pleasure for this very cordial, stimulating conversation. Vaush and Dr. Bogardus, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you both.
It's been a tremendous pleasure. Thank you very much.
100%. Stick around, folks. I'll be right back with a post-credit scene letting you know about upcoming debates that you don't want to miss. With that, thanks so much one last time to our guests, and I'll be right back in just a moment. And we're backstage. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Okay. Appreciate it, Vaush. It was good meeting you. Good talking to you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
I just feel if it's the back room, so I mute myself and I mute them. Oh, I didn't mute them, did I? Oh, I forgot to mute them. Oh, I just muted me. Oh, I'm so fucking dumb. Knew I forgot something. Well, whatever. It's not like anything got leaked. Okay, listen, this is the point that I'm trying to make at the end, okay? Definitions in and of themselves can't be right or wrong. Definitions can be contradictory, but that only means the two are contradictory, not that one of them is right and one of them is wrong. Definitions can also be useful or not useful, but again, that's not the same as being right or wrong. So here's an example of what I mean.
I don't think we can allow for contradiction. I don't know if you can allow for contradictory definitions. It seems like language has become absurd at that point. If we are truly willing to accept that contradictions can be contradictory, or that the definition can be contradictory. Could there be a contradictory definition? I don't think so. I don't think you can have that because from contradictions you could prove literally everything, right? It would in dialects you can. I don't know. Somebody's gonna mention some paraconsistent logic bullshit, and then you're gonna get banned for it. Hold on one second.
Okay, right here, the periodic table. Okay, so he was distinguishing between utility and truth, but there's no contrast because the thing that he kept doing was he kept conflating between the obtaining of facts of the world and the categorization of those facts. He kept saying like, well, you find the truth of things like the way we did with water. Okay, but that you're referring to a fact of the world, not categorizing those facts. So an example would be, if you take a look at the periodic table, everything here is a fact of the world. The number of protons and atomic weight and everything, like that's a fact of the world that exists whether or not we do, okay? But the decision to group noble gases, don't get me wrong, noble gases do have plenty of things in common. I don't know what they are. I'm not a chemist. You know, they do have things in common, but the reason we group them, we didn't group them because like the universe distinguished them. The only reason the periodic table is shaped this way is because of human need. Have you ever wondered why 1 with hydrogen starts over 2 and then helium is on the other side all the way over here? And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We grouped it arbitrarily in order.
There is a world where Vaush's statements here can make more sense. He needs to bootstrap way more onto this to get there. But like, I feel like the periodic table of elements is like the worst possible thing. It's like the worst example in all of science that he could choose in terms of things that are constructed arbitrarily. He needs to never use this word again. I think. Okay, here I'm gonna give Vaush the best intellectual advice ever. Now, maybe it's not the best for a stream. Here's the best intellectual advice Vaush could ever get on a stream. If Vaush could literally get rid of the phrase social construct and the word arbitrary, the quality of his understanding of the world and conversations would increase like 100-fold. Like, he just needs to eliminate those two words, and he'd be doing so much better in all of these conversations because holy fuck.
Order to like collect elements that have similar features, but their similarity is determined by our perception of their usefulness. You know,
like even that is just a weird term. Their similarity is determined by our perception of these. Is it kind of like? Is it is it our perception of the usefulness of like how many valence electrons of like something has, or like how empty or full the electron shells are, the SPDF, whatever the fuck? Like, is that really like our, like, kind of, but it's also kind of like a feature of the world? It's just, this is just a really bad example of, or maybe it's the best example because it's literally the hardest possible one to defend. Arbitrary. Did you read the Reddit post defending what Vaush said? No, because I already know it's gonna be some fucking retard that's gonna be like, well, actually, Destiny, there's a couple of different ways you can arrange a periodic table. So Vaush is actually 100% correct. When he says it's arbitrary, how we list it out, we really only list it out because it, like, I guarantee you, what is this? I'll be real, I think Destiny was mega unfair to what Vaush said about the periodic table. I don't think Vaush said anything that was incredibly dumb. I think Destiny's normally unfair to Vaush or spite-driven. Even sometimes being unreasonably charitable to Vaush. My understanding of what Vaush said is the periodic table is arranged in such a way that the characters are used for us to quickly analyze properties we find interesting. Yeah, but it's not just necessarily properties. It's also like underlying probably fact of the matters that cause these properties to emerge. The periodic table exists because there are characteristics of different elements that are useful to distinguish and compare. Kind of. That's kind of true. But I want to push back against this, like, social construct, arbitrary. Everything is social construct, arbitrary, social construct, arbitrary. Like, there are these underlying facts of the matters that are going to lead us to arrange things in certain ways, right? Like, Vaush has, like, used this, Vaush has used this word so much.
What I mean? Like, I've said this before about like the way the way things become useful or whatever, okay? But like I'm trying to think of like, okay, imagine that like humans, the civilization ends, all right? And all of our shit gets washed away by time and our ruins fade to dust. And 1,000,000 years from now, aliens come to Earth and they find like our rubble. And all of this shit is meaningless to them. They have absolutely no understanding what anything they're looking at means.
And this is also kind of one of the things, and I can't tell what his underpinnings are in terms of his understanding of some of these systems. I've said this in the past. I've said this on this stream 2 times. I'll say it a 3rd time. Aliens would probably be able to understand basic mathematical truths, like basic mathematical axioms, and aliens would also probably have something similar to a periodic table of elements. It's just such a fundamental building block of the universe. Unless they have some totally different way of understanding, like they have a different sense that I can't conceive of, maybe, or access to like a different type of universe, maybe. I guess we could conceive of like other universes, maybe, or maybe by definition those are inconceivable. Maybe there might be an inconceivable universe where these things are different, but like we're getting pretty out there at that point.
There's no clue, like, because it's so damaged. Like, they have no idea. Their technology is way beyond ours. Ours was back when we died off. Like, whatever, okay? Like, the way they would group and categorize things from our culture is not the way we would group and categorize things. Like, I would group and categorize stuff based on its usefulness.
It's possible, but it's so hard to imagine like that this grouping on the periodic table of elements is just like totally like, oh no, like they might just group it based on like the color that the elements have when they're in a gaseous form or something. It's conceivable, but so hard to imagine.
To me, water bottle helps me drink when I'm not near the sink. Game controller helps me lose an Elden Ring. This Berserk Shirka and Guts clock is cool, and I like looking at it. You know, a chicken is a chicken. Like, that's what all this means to that, like, to me, right? But to them, like, they wouldn't have the same associated meanings. They might group things based on elemental composition or based on color, you know? Like, they might look through these ruins, see nothing but aesthetic value because nothing here is practically useful, and they might just collect things based on texture or color, you know? Like, that's the thing. And they wouldn't be wrong to do so. It's just like the usefulness relative to them. Does that make sense? Do people get what I'm talking about?
We're just like, we are engaging in such weird levels of, I don't even know what you would call this. Like, we're like everything, we're like in nihilistic meaninglessness of everything at this point. I don't know like how to even, I don't know. I can't even, guys. I can't even.
You just call me babe?
I call everyone babe now. I don't feel special.
Oh. That was quite something.
Yeah, good times, fun times.
I think like in 10 years time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we really think that, because this is the thing, like if I were someone like you, like I had your kind of pull-in platform, like Vaush does or Hassan does, like you can become public intellectuals in a sense who are
True.
rigorous about their arguments,
Very.
right? So you want to leave a history, like a good history, where you don't look like an absolute dumb fuck, right? And just that 1 minute where he talks about the periodic table and he doesn't understand what the noble gases are. I mean,
Well,
he's
I think the
having
issue
a
is
debate.
I don't think a lot of people. I don't know. Fuck. I feel like I learned this in high school. The periodic table elements is like very, very, very rigid in terms of not only its organization, but like the properties that it predicts. Like there are a lot of elements that we can predict the features of, and that we did in the past. Like we predicted the behavior of certain elements that hadn't even been discovered yet because of the arrangement of how it's arranged. But yeah, I don't know. He just doesn't know that. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, someone said that this is irrelevant. I guess it is. Well, I mean, everything else, but I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of what Vaush said, I think is like I disagree a lot with whoever the professor was. Not because I think like they're stupid. I just like they're very much coming from a different avenue.
Mm-hmm.
But Vaush just does the thing where, like, because this didn't used to be his position. Although at the end he did say that self-ID is all that is necessary.
Well, he tries to maintain that throughout because the more radical left groups that he hangs out with, like, constantly maintain that. So he's forced to, regardless of whether or not he believes in that position, he'll never change his mind on that. Because people like Demon Mama and Keffels are pushing that, and he has to like stay loyal to that camp. It's like a political group kind of.
Right, and then he shifts over to sort of my camp, and what I thought was your camp, at least last time we talked about this, it's been a while. That, you know, womanhood or manhood or any sort of gender, its definition is not.
Simon says.
It's pluralistic, and it contains a multitude of things that changes over the course of time. And I think, like Vaush said, I mean, I think it depends also on culture. I mean, you said, like, on average, you'd be able to successfully point out what is a man and what is a woman, right? You would probably get that right in most societies. No
almost all
there.
throughout time and space.
Of course, of course. Like, but like I don't. But like that's just sort of I would say a quirk of nature. I mean, that doesn't say anything about what it's supposed to be. It's just so.
Well, I think it speaks a little bit to the idea that there's probably some underlying fact of the matter pointing to male and female having some congruent definition through time. That it's not just this amorphous, nebulous, esoteric thing that we are fooling ourselves into believing exists. It's probably some.
No. I mean, of course, it's not that. I think it's so. Like, my point is largely, if we look at the history of, I mean, because there have been societies, and I mean, Vaush said this, of course, and probably people laugh, but I mean, there are societies where there are individuals who don't fall into either gender role. And I think looking at them, you wouldn't be able to actually successfully identify them. Now, these people are rare, right?
Yeah, I don't actually know if I agree with that anymore. I used to, but I've gotten so much email from a couple of indigenous scholars and then a couple of history people that it feels like when we quote things like Two-Spirit, we try to have this Western understanding. We're like, oh, look, they had trans people.
Oh, no, I mean, they're not trans.
Yeah, the reality is that it's usually, or it's oftentimes like men that couldn't fulfill like the social roles of like man. So they basically get like relegated to this like.
Oh, well, don't say that.
What do you mean? I mean, these are the history. You're going to have to give me a better argument like with a story. Because like a couple people that are like very historically minded have like emailed me and like also wanted to send me books and citation shit where they're like, it's just that nobody, like the progressive understanding of trans never existed in any of these cultures when people were like, oh, they had third genders. It was never like, oh, like a progressive understanding. Sometimes like in ancient history, it was like they had third genders so that like high status men could fuck low status men without it being gay. So they'd have like a third gender created for them, stuff like that. But I mean, if you disagree with that, that's fine. But like, at the very least, I would push back against the notion that like there was ever like a progressive understanding in ancient history of like third genders. I don't think those ever existed.
Well, I mean, but if you look at like the history of biology, for example, the idea of there being two biological sexes is, and I mean, if you look at going even back to the ancient Greeks, I mean, this idea of two divergent biological sexes is, and at least in Western science, I don't know enough about Eastern science, it is a relatively recent invention.
Maybe like
true.
maybe the formalization of the concepts, but the
Right,
arrangement
yes,
of society
yes.
around them is probably as
But
old as human history itself.
Yeah, I'm not denying that there have been concepts that people use that generally include, hair in certain places, certain genitalia, and at times also what I would include social roles, certain behaviors, groups that you participate in, the people that you interact with. I think that those things also are included in the concept of gender. And I seem to remember you agreeing with me on that last time, right?
Yeah, I don't think you said anything I could even disagree with, right?
Right. Well, are you accusing me of being too vague?
Well, I mean, like the way that gender is performed across history has varied, like at different times. Like I think, yeah, I would probably agree with that, right?
Okay, and so you would just probably disagree with this guy who was trying to tie it to. He was trying to basically say that the meaning of these terms lies ultimately in their reference.
Well, I don't know if this guy would disagree with that statement, that like how genders are performed or whatever. But I think he would argue that performativity
at least according to his paper.
No, I think he would say that like there might be different gender roles throughout time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't necessitate a gender-sex distinction. That socially the spaces that men and women occupy might be different, but it doesn't mean that we need a different thing to describe what's going on that doesn't include just like men or women.
Can I float something by you and see what you think about it?
If you want to.
Just because we see a constant correlation between something in nature doesn't mean that we need to ascribe to it any sort of special status. Would you agree with that? I'm not saying that I'm not saying that.
Yeah, there are things we can observe that like the way a particular raindrop falls or something maybe doesn't need like some special classification or something, sure.
Right, and we don't need to assign certain significance to it. And my point in bringing this up is that at least from what I didn't read the whole thing, and based on what I heard, and regardless of whether this professor thinks it or not, I mean, this is what a lot of people think. A lot of transmedicalists, they do attach it to specific biological concepts or a group of biological concepts, which, I mean, if anything, often sort of goes counter to their point because they usually don't know the history of the science. But
well, wait, hold on. I don't know what's the problem so far. Like attaching things to certain biological concepts. What do you mean? Like I would attach sex to certain biological concepts.
My point is that by attaching, like, you agree that with like what Vaush said, and you even agreed with this, that definitions are by their very nature, they are prescriptive, right?
I don't think I like that statement. That statement seems really vacuous, but
I don't mean they're prescriptive in the sense that every time we do it, we're making a conscious decision that we ought to do it. I mean only in the sense that they're rule following. That's it. I don't mean anything heavy by that.
What do you mean by rule following? That you're making a statement about what is a thing?
You are participating, like you can imagine it like a game. Like everybody has been using this specific sound and it tends to correlate with this and these situations, and I'm going to follow that pattern.
Okay.
Right, you agree with that.
I mean, like, why? No, wait, fuck, you gotta explain more. I don't understand. Do you say this again? So how does that make a definition prescriptive?
I don't. Sorry, I shouldn't have used the word prescriptive.
Yeah, that's because that's confusing to me.
Yes, sorry. A better word would be rule following.
Sure.
Right. So
I don't know what that means.
There's a publicly accessible language, because this is what the professor was saying, because we don't have private languages. And so when they said, "Well, what's your definition?"
Mm-hmm.
What he was trying to say is, "Well, I mean, I don't. Because he's pointing to the very true thing that, I mean, if you were to ask 20 people in the room, you'd all get different answers. But him, as someone who I think believes in a causal theory of meaning, is going to say that we have come to actually know the meaning of these things, even if it's not totally clear in our minds yet. We are getting aspects of that meaning from our scientific investigations. And I think that's what he's grounding gender in, is those biological those biological facts of the matter that are then making their way into public language.
Yeah, possibly. I would have to. I'm uncomfortable ascribing something to him that I don't 100% know, but it's, yeah, I mean, I could conceive of that being the case.
But do you think that that is a valid position?
That we through our investigations, we're learning more about what biological sex is, even if we were able to ascertain, like figure out like what it is, even without these scientific investigations, or
that the meaning of words like woman or man comes down ultimately what that is specifically picking out in the world.
Sure, but I think the argument would be that like woman and man as concepts have always referred to some unchanging thing throughout all of human history. That,
well, I don't know what that means exactly.
As in, like, if I go back in time, or if I travel through any land, like, even if the definition of man and woman is changing over time, it's still referring to something that's going to be identifiable across all cultures. Like, I'm going to be able to go back to any indigenous tribe or any ancient historical civilization, and I'm going to be able to find, oh, like, that's a man, that's a woman, that's a man, that's a woman, like, very easily, very quickly. Even though these things have dramatically changed over time, like what the roles are, the dresses are, and everything.
I would object to that by giving an analogy. You can say if you don't like it. What's that fish that first came on the land? Coelacanth, I think is what it's called.
No fucking idea, but
it's basically the middle line between reptiles and fish. Okay. The coelacanth, for the most part, if we were on the planet, okay, we can basically determine what is a reptile and what is a fish, and we're pretending coelacanths are still alive and yada yada. But then we come across a bunch of coelacanths, all sort of in maybe different species in different stages of evolution. If our definition can't account for these things, then clearly there's not only something missing, but that this missing something has to come from, presumably, social factors, as I think most people admit.
I have no idea what that meant. Can you elucidate? Are you saying that if I can go back in time and there's like a thing that I have a word that I use to describe, even if that thing is different, then that shows that my...
No, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just giving an example because I could come up with a bunch of people to another point in society who we might consider women now, and it is true that it might very well be that a culture would identify them all as men, for example. Like maybe you'd want to do
that.
Like
okay, yeah. So for that, I disagree. I think they would call them men with female characteristics. I don't think they would call them female. So like, for instance, if I were to go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I were to take a white man from today and go back in time to the 70s and 80s, and I were to show them, look at this white man. He's wearing earrings, he has other jewelry on, and he has long hair. And a man back then would go, these are things that women do. He wouldn't say, wow, that's a woman. I'm actually genuinely confused on the topics or on the concepts. He would say, that's a man with long hair, a man that has earrings, and a man that wears jewelry.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that such a recent example is really...
If I were to go back 5,000 years or however much to prehistoric society, or not prehistoric,
yes,
or pre-human history, or even if I were to go back like 2,000 years, at the time of Jesus or whatever, I could pull out men and women and bring them to today, and nobody would be confused about who a man is and who a woman is. Everybody would pretty much know.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with that. My only point is that if we're going to give a definition that's going to be vague and needs to account for people that don't easily fit within those two categories, then we need to broaden the definition of what gender ultimately is.
Yeah, well, now we're arguing for broadening. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with that like we can have broader understandings of like the roles that people can have when performing their gender.
Right.
I don't think
that
that's
encompass more than just like the biological.
I would argue it seems like gender, the performance of gender is something that is abstracted from biology, or it's something that seems to exist a little bit differently than it's a different thing, right?
What do you mean by
that? So we might have certain gender roles. So men might have like the gender role of being like more honorable and more of like a caretaker for their family. And that's not something that's necessarily found in biology, but it might be found in biology that men tend to be stronger and faster, and they're hunters, right? So abstracted from biology, we might get to a thing where like men are the caretakers. Even if that's not strictly biologically found, that gender performance is somewhat abstracted from the biological underpinnings of it, right?
Right, but the only thing and I think this is what Vaush is saying as well, is that our understandings of gender needs to encompass more than biology, to encompass those very roles that you're talking about. I mean,
no.
of
That's
course
I have
there's
no
going to
problem
be
with that,
this-
and that would be easy. But I think he's trying to say that these categories aren't real or don't exist at all, or are totally arbitrary.
Are arbitrary, yes,
But
of
they're
course,
not
and that's where he's
arbitrary.
totally
They're
wrong. Yes,
yeah.
you're right. Yeah, but so that's ultimately what this fucking all this. I mean, he just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. How many cycles of this debate are going to happen?
Well, I mean, I have no idea. However many times he does this debate, I guess, huh?
Well, I thought it was all settled like last year, and then I guess that was over Doe.
Well, there's always, I mean, like trans issues are always going to be culture war issues, right? So.
Yeah, what do you think about trans racialism?
I don't like it.
Interesting. Why?
So when it comes to trans issues, I'm fully, by the way, a trans medicalist now. I don't know if you've caught up with everything, unironically.
Really?
Yes. When it comes to trans,
wait, what do you mean? Wait. So what do you mean by that?
If you don't have some experience of dysphoria, I don't consider you a trans person. I think you're something way different.
Well, isn't that true by definition of what?
Careful. No, that's not necessarily true. Because the current thing is you are whatever you identify as. So anyone that says they're trans is trans. That's what the current definition is.
But then why would you ever feel the need to?
They don't. That's the issue. There's a lot of quote unquote trans people that never want to transition, never want to have a gender expression that matches their whatever they say their gender identity is. But yeah, that's like where the conversation is right now, publicly.
Oh, I think I must have missed a memo or something.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, if you disagree with that, then you would be a trans medicalist as well, right? The negative connotations with trans medicalism.
So anything that's not self-ID is trans medicalism?
Basically, yeah.
Well, I will say this, that in practice, I suppose I am self-ID. Like if
in practice, yeah, you kind of have to be a little bit because we're relying on people's self-reports.
But it's not even I have to, it's that I want to. And this is what I say to everybody, especially fucking dipshits in Twitch chats, right? Is that if someone wants you to call them by a certain set of pronouns, just fucking do it.
Well, sure, but that's where we're dipping back into the topic that Vaush and this guy were arguing about. There's a difference between respecting what somebody says they are and somebody actually being what they say they are.
Of course,
right?
Of course. And yeah. I think we can have that discussion, but I also think it's important to remember that, like, in day-to-day practice, like, this is just... I don't ever really see it coming up.
Well, so this is the issue that I have now. The reason why I think it's important to have this distinction between those with dysphoria and those that aren't is, I have this written in my manifesto. I think there are 3 reasons that I list. One
Will you let me proofread your manifesto?
Maybe. One is
Come
for...
on, I'll fancy it up, make
I'm
it
sure
all...
you will, okay? Okay, yeah. So one is that the public needs to understand something that they don't, which is what trans people are. If you can't have an understanding of it, you're fucked. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that trans people need to be able to sort themselves into appropriate communities if they need support or help. And then I had a 3rd reason, but I don't remember what it was. But those first 2 are like I think the big 2. That the public needs to have an understanding of like what it means to be trans and what that even is, and then trans people should be able to have communities for themselves that they can sort themselves into if they want support or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's roughly sort of the right position. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult because he just keeps changing his.
Well, so Vaush, to be clear, is full on self-ID. Period. That's what Vaush believes.
Well, but his arguments aren't ever for that, really.
No, well, his arguments are all over the place.
Well, and if he does, they're so bad.
Yeah, his arguments are all over the place, but he's necessarily bought into self-ID full stop, because that's where, like Demon Mama and the rest of his quote-unquote allies are on the internet right now. So he's just completely, he has to be bought into that argument.
Oh my God, Demon Mama is hilarious. But specifically, like, with respect to that debate, I don't think that professor did very, I think he said, I think he was being too amiable. So.
Yeah, he should have pushed back harder in some areas. It made it harder to figure out. But I don't know where his mind was after the opening statement, even from Vaush. His mind might have been in a million different areas.
We're not like, academic philosophers are not debate bros, really. Like, I've never met I've never met a professor who I'm like, oh, they're gonna fucking own me in a debate.
Sure.
Like,
well, except for that one from God's Not Dead, who wants to own his year one philosophy student who's a Christian on whether or not God is real. But I know what you mean.
Yeah, true. But where do you fall right now with respect to like skepticism?
I'm pretty much unchanged on that. Like the foundational core of who I am is still like ultimately skeptical, but I mean, like I just don't entertain those notions for conversation because it's kind of stupid to do so. So
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like I'm the exact same way with respect to being a natural skeptic.
oh well, cool.
But do you think that there exist? I'm not interested in the moral stuff right now, but in terms of, do you think like epistemic? Do you think that there is a correct conception of the truth?
These all feel like human concepts to me. And if there is something like that, I feel like it would be inaccessible to us because we have no way to like perceive it or sense it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you want to do some weird Kantian, like logically, I can construct all of these things, but I don't speak enough German to understand that. So fuck.
Well, I mean, like that's sort of it. Like the whole point is you want to delimit how far. I mean, this is my issue with a lot of philosophers and like, for example, like Hegelians who come on, right? I think that they try to do too much. They try to extend themselves far beyond like what we can. I mean, I think like most of religion is that, right? All these theological arguments are an attempt to talk about and comprehend something that's beyond comprehensible.
Well, yeah, because you want to be able to make statements, like you want to be able to make strong moral statements, but like in my totally uneducated opinion, like the grounding for these statements is going to exist outside of our world. So you almost necessarily need to like get theological if you want to feel like you can say like with absolute certainty, this is morally correct, or this is like a moral truth that is just 100% correct and grounded completely. Like it feels like you have to step outside of this world to do so, and theology is kind of like the easiest way to do that.
Well, I mean, that's where the constructivist sort of framework comes in and aims to establish moral objectivity from, you know, the self and sort of your own consciousness and the way that it is structured. I mean, obviously that's really complicated, but the ethical case is way harder than like the epistemic case, because I think everyone can pretend, like Vaush can pretend to reject and be like this epistemic, like hyper anti-realist, but there are just certain facts of the matter. I mean, they're not strictly facts, they're descriptions of our experience, but there are certain ways that our experiences just have to be, right? And for them to be otherwise, we would have no ability to experience it, right? And that's that type of healthy skepticism.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but like we're like, depending on how like anal you want to get about the topic, right? I could like pose like Descartes' demon to you. Like you don't even know if your experiences are real. Maybe it's just a demon showing you and lying to you.
No, I can't. That's perfectly fine, because this is I'm trying to. I'm not giving any names on or saying any positions. I think you'll like. I think it might be a new argument that you can employ. If you agree with it, you might actually completely disagree with where I'm going. But if you were to give me Descartes' demon, for example, like describe to me what that would encompass.
That like, well, if you tell me that like through a constructivist lens, through our experiences or whatever, we can build some truths out of that. Couldn't I argue that like, well, maybe even your experiences are lies? So if not Descartes' demon, then the modern variation of that of like brain in a vat or something, right?
Right. So yeah, it's a lie, like meaning that there is. So like, let's just get that out of the way. We'll say that, and I'm just going to call it the transcendental object. Okay. But we can call it the thing in itself, right? We'll never have true knowledge of that. Okay. And so, for example, what people are talking about in theology, what I think a lot of people are talking about in theoretical physics, not all of science, but a lot of areas of theory, like dark matter and stuff. Facts probably about human consciousness. I think a lot of this stuff is beyond our capabilities as human beings or as rational beings. And essentially this argument against any kind of skepticism you give me is going to be that regardless of how I'm deceived, whether they match up with reality or not, I'm always presented in the same kind of necessary way.
Well, I mean, maybe, but again, this is why if you get ultimately skeptical, it becomes ultimately or dumb. Because I could say that, like, for instance, like the universe is inconsistent, and you might say, well, no, it's not, and I'll say, like, oh, well, yes, actually, all of your memories have been wiped, and now all the rules have changed, and you would have no way of even knowing that, right? So I feel like this. This is why I don't try to consider anything related to ultimate skepticism, because it's always like a nihilistic black hole of meaning. And
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's really hard, right? And I think that's something that we see on display from people like Vaush, right? Like, these are really complicated and difficult, ideas, and people spend thousands of papers working and building blocks and frameworks and definitions, all to explain, pick out, very nuanced slicings of, these certain cognitive behaviors, and and like Vaush, who is just sort of just going with whatever the fuck that he wants. But again, regardless of whether we're being deceived or not, whether my beliefs match up with what is actually out there in the world, it's not even conceivable to me. Like, for example, just consider the fact that all of our experience goes through time.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense to comprehend any form of experience that doesn't run through time in the exact same fashion.
Sure.
If we were to do that, it would no longer be, right? So there's necessary truth and knowledge that you have, right?
I mean, assuming that never changes, sure, but
well, we have to assume that. That's sort of the point.
I don't disagree with you. I make all these assumptions. This is how I function. Yeah, I don't assume that, like, tomorrow time is going to disappear ever for any of my arguments or anything like that. Sure.
But it's not just an assumption.
Well, I mean, it is an assumption, right?
Well, you think it. Well, I want to convince you that it's not an assumption.
There's no way you can convince me, though, right? If you're ultimately skeptical,
I'm not going to try to prove. I can never prove to you that it mirrors, that our world of appearances mirrors how things really are. But I can say, or I feel confident in saying, that we necessarily have to perceive and experience the world in a certain way to even be considered someone capable of having experience.
Okay,
right?
Maybe. Okay, what's the next topic? We're circling the
drain
on this.
You can't back up all your philosophical positions now, huh?
Well, it's just that I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing over and over again, because this is why it's called ultimate skepticism, not penultimate skepticism. It's not like the step before you figure it all out. Like, it's a circling the drain of, like, stupid questions. Well, why? It's like philosophy for 2-year-olds is what I'm just going to keep saying, right?
Right, but the point at which you start to admit of truth is, like, from which everything else is going to flow, right?
Yeah, but it's the point at which I agree. I want to agree with that, but the reality is that the real thing is, like, you're going to say, like, okay, well, when do I just want to stop asking questions because this is fucking boring? And that's when you can start doing real philosophy. So, like, some default assumption should probably be, like, I can probably trust the sense data I get about the world. I can probably trust, like, some basic, like, axiomatic truths. I can probably trust things like deduction. And then from there, because it seems like these things are unchangeable and can never change and will never change, so then you move from there. But there's no reason to really think that. Like, they could all change tomorrow, theoretically. You have to admit that tomorrow you could literally be born in a different body, not know it, not have any recollection or memory of where you are now, and you might be in an alternate universe where time goes backwards. That's possible, right? Inconceivable, but possible. But, like,
right.
But there's no way to like argue against that. But at some point you have to say, like, okay, well, this is like mental masturbation. Let's just make some assumptions and then go from there, right?
But it's not just, like, anti-probabilistic. It's that, like, there would be, like, what you're describing is, I guess, metaphysically impossible, because there would be loss of a subject. By what
I mean, you say metaphysically impossible, but maybe the metaphysics of a different type of universe would allow for it, right?
By metaphysical possibility, meaning within our current metaphysical laws.
But if you're already giving that constraint, then it seems like you've already conceded that, like, well, the metaphysics of
I would never rule out logical, but there's no, contradiction or inconsistency in acknowledging the logical possibility, but only that us right now as human agents are necessarily going to be experiencing the world in a certain set of ways.
Yeah, I understand, but like, what if you're part of a computer program and your metaphysics is just whatever the code of that computer program is?
So, I'm not making any claims about the actual entities that they are. It's almost purely relational.
Well, if you're
right?
well, if you're
It's
not, well, I mean, but
functionalist.
even relationships could be defined by a system, right? Theoretically.
Pardon?
Even relationships could theoretically be defined by a system. And those relationships could theoretically change too. Again, like tomorrow you could wake up in a different body, or maybe tomorrow you wake up as a chair and you're not even conscious of it. You're just a chair, and you just.
Well, no, but I disagree. I disagree with that because I cannot be a chair.
What?
I don't
But
understand
how do you
what
know
that
that?
would
Yeah. Well, I know you
Well,
don't
what does
understand
it
it. I mean, that's the
fucking
whole
mean to be a
point.
chair. Tell me.
I wouldn't know because I'm stuck in this system right now.
Because it's not possible. And that's the point.
Okay.
Right? Well, like you can't just say like, oh, I could be a rock. Like if I'm saying you, and obviously there's like a cognizing thinking subject.
I mean, for now there is, sure. But maybe that would
Well,
change.
what's the alternative?
Maybe once the computer program reprograms me, maybe I would be something different.
Well, that's fine as long as like again, and this is where I accept like a functional. Like I'm not tied to any sort of material, right? I'm very neutral. I'm metaphysically neutral, ontologically neutral. You fucking add whatever entities you want, okay? Round, squares.
Gotcha. Okay, I want out of the ultimate skeptical thing because I'm just gonna keep asking the same question over and over again. Okay, what's the next thing, or do you want to talk about anything else?